Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Platforms such as UA Weapons and Jomini W on Twitter and the Enforcer channel allowed people around the world to follow the war in a depth and a way that had never happened before. Retired General David Petraeus.
Yes. The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Наші
Пануєм і ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. І душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу. І покажем, що ми браття козацького роду.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 728 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And the Russians' bases are exploding, everything's crashing, everything's burning. Welcome back.
And everything is on fire, and nothing is okay. We are going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, and we have some really big news today, because we got to finally see the drone footage from the Ukrainian armed forces showing them wiping out an entire 2 companies of the Russian army with a single rocket. I'm not even kidding. It's literally 2 companies of Russian soldiers getting wiped out. And not only that, a whole bunch of other crazy stuff happened in Ukraine today. It was actually a pretty wild day. And what is even crazier, and this is something that doesn't really matter as far as the channel's news goes, but it's something that has always mattered to me mentally in my head. We have literally no location unknowns tonight. This is kind of a bragging point in my head whenever we're able to find where all the clips go on the map, because usually the location unknowns in my head are it's like an ugly stepchild. That really isn't supposed to exist, but because we can't find out where these clips came from, we put them up here. Tonight, all we have is the casualty report in the location unknown section, which I consider a point of personal pride, and hopefully we can have more days like that in the future. But, nevertheless, I have to bring y'all to the major news that has occurred over the past 24 hours, which is the striking of a Russian camp and the complete elimination of most of the Russians that were inside of it. Now, to give y'all a little bit of, you know what, actually I'm going to play the clips in context, because we got one part of this incident yesterday, but finally we got all the footage today, and it is big news. So starting off with the actual drone footage that came out today, here is what the Ukrainians showed of the HIMARS striking a Russian camp in Kherson. So from what we understand, this is a camp that is somewhere near the Aleski Sands, based off the information that we were able to gather before the stream went live. This is the early morning hours. We're talking about 8 o'clock in the morning. The sun has just rose over the skies of Ukraine, and these Russians at this training camp are being called into formation. And you can actually see a fairly decent clump of them already right there. The rest of the soldiers are going to be coming in a moment, and from what we know, there were 2 entire companies of Russian soldiers that ended up falling into formation here on what we can call their parade ground for the training camp when the HIMARS missile came in. So here's the clip. I'm going to be muting the audio, but we can see more Russians coming in to fall into what you can call like the loosest parade formation I've ever seen on the parade ground. And by the way, calling this as a parade ground is kind of a little exorbitant, because this is literally just a patch of clearing in between some trees. But we can see them all sitting there. A pretty good cluster of them. From what we can tell, there's like 30, maybe 40 of them here right now at this moment in the clip. And there's the HIMARS missile right on top of their heads. From what we know, none of them made it out. That HIMARS missile wiped out both of those companies. And also, by the way, I gotta make this quite clear. A company usually is around 100 men, but from what we understand, these were depleted companies. So most of them had already been ground down in the fighting that had been happening near Krynky and Kazachi for a little while. So this was really all that was left of those 2 companies, was around 40 guys. And then they ended up getting plastered here on this training ground by a HIMARS cluster missile, or a cluster rocket more so. Smoke begins rising over the camp, and we can see right there, it's not a good sight. It did not go well for them. And now we can see what appears to be another large cluster of Russians falling in for formation at the same camp at the same day, and y'all wouldn't believe it. They didn't learn from earlier in the day, so they're going to learn the hard way a second time. The drone is, of course, calling in the exact coordinates to the HIMARS. The missile is probably already on the way, and there it is. knocking out an entire other company.
And that HIMARS missile really leaves behind a mushroom cloud behind it.
Yeah, it does. I mean, these things are airburst cluster. Well, not airburst rounds, but they're airburst. Pretty much canister shot rounds is the best way to explain them. They just fling out tungsten ball bearings everywhere. I believe this is the M30 missile in particular. But these things are devastating against infantry formations like we saw in that clip. And you can see right there, the Ukrainians ended up flooring an entire Russian training camp because they called parade formation in the morning. They got leveled, and then they didn't learn, and they just called parade formation again later in the day for everyone else who was left in the camp, and then they got blasted too. Now, to bring y'all back to something that we saw yesterday, to just put this all together, this was actual footage we got from the ground from one of the people that wasn't in the formation, but ended up running off into the woods and hiding after the camp got hit and blown away, and all these guys went with it.
Пидоры, сука. Вон, сука, достроили пидорасы, блядь. В чистом поле, нахуй. Ебаные, нахуй. Командиры. Всю роту расхуярили. Походу 4-я. Так она и 6-я там, ебаный в рот, там пизда
Like
народу.
this guy's instinct is all my comrades just got wiped out in one fell swoop. And let me whip out my phone real quick and record this for old time's sake and get this on camera.
Dude, all he needs, this guy in particular, he just needs to TikTok like voiceover going, "Oh my God, look what happened to my company," you know, or something like that. That's what he needs.
Like he's capturing a family memory or something here.
Man, and it's not a good family memory. It's one of those bad ones, you know, where everyone gets in a fight at Thanksgiving. It's that kind of a memory. It's not a good one.
Там кто пошел?
It's getting ugly.
And that right there is where the company was. I'm going to end the clip here because we showed the rest of this yesterday for the most part that we could show, but this was a pretty big victory for the Ukrainians without a lot of effort really being put out. The HIMARS fired off 2 missiles, ended up wiping out 2 companies of Russian soldiers, and the Russians got nothing in return. They just took nothing but losses and absolutely no gain from this incident right here. And speaking of which, things are starting to seem a lot more like they're not going well for the Russians down here in the south, and they're really trying to make it look like it is. And I think, I'm not going to lie, y'all, I actually think it's because of situations like these, the Russians feel like they have to lie even harder. And so I'm going to take y'all up to Krynky, which is just about a dozen miles away and in the exact same part of the front, because up here, in this part of the front line, the Russians today tried to claim that they captured Krynky. Now, many of y'all will know that the 36th Marine Brigade of the Ukrainian Marines has currently been holding Krynky for about 2 months at this point very solidly, even against VDV pushes and mechanized brigade pushes further to the west that have attempted to uproot them from their positions and push them back towards the river or into it. They have not been able to succeed at doing that, and the Russians today decided to do something that I can only explain is raw stupidity. They went into Krynky, they threw down some flags. Here's the actual footage from the Russians, showing them putting up some flags in Krynky of the Russian Federation, and also it looks like the naval infantry. And that's it. They didn't actually take the city. They just wandered into a spot where it looked like there was a gap in the Ukrainian lines. They planted the flags, just a few guys did, and then they tried to wander off after filming the propaganda video. The whole point of this video was so that way the Russian public would believe that the Russians had retaken Krynky and the Ukrainians had been pushed out. But in this clip, y'all are going to see that's not the case. And I'm going to show it to y'all right here. So this is the sped up video. That's the Russians saying, "Here we are in Krynky, heroes of the Federation, bled." And then right here, this is the Ukrainian drone that was watching them about half a mile away as they then wander off after planting the flags. And these 2 guys went, "Okay, we did it. We've won. It's a propaganda coup." And next thing you know, they're about to get blasted. So there they go, wandering off into the distance. And you can see that they're making out for the road. They're trying to get back into the forest because the city has not been cleared and the Ukrainians are still in it pretty heavily. But in the meantime, they decide to take a little rest stop and stop at this abandoned house here to try and catch their breath for the next jaunt pretty much into the woods. And so we can now see the Ukrainians bring down the drone, dropping a bomblet onto the flag, and knocking that out.
Oh. Took care of that thing.
They took care of that rabble flag, that rabble rouser. But still, we can see that flag being knocked out. And the Ukrainians, believe it or not, still hold the city. As a matter of fact, to back that up with actual video and picture evidence, because, you know, I don't expect y'all to take my word at face value every time I tell y'all something. I actually want y'all to see real proof behind what I'm saying. Here is a video that came out today of the Ukrainians, 36th Marine Brigade, using drones to fly across the Dnipro River into Krynky and drop off supplies to the Ukrainian soldiers that are still in the city. So here's the clip. The drone's flying in. We can see a Ukrainian already there, ready to receive the supplies. The drone drops it off and immediately flies away. The soldier picks it up and then takes it to where it needs to go. But you see that one also dropping a small container as well of some more well-needed supplies. And we can see time and time again, these drones, fairly small though, are bringing in supplies for these Ukrainian soldiers. And this is video proof. I mean, there's no way that we can get around this. This is video proof that is showing that the Ukrainians are still inside of Krynky, although the Russians tried to make it seem today that they had pushed them out and they had now captured the village. That is a complete lie.
Goodness, like, I gotta say though, like Koljack pointed out in the live chat, like Krynky is looking rough. Like goodness, like that city or that town is absolutely devastated at this point.
Oh, it is. The Russians have been flattening this place with artillery and glide bombs as best they can. And there's actually a lot to talk about as far as the glide bomb strategy is going for the Russians. But that will be a little bit later in stream because that is... You know what? No, actually, I will talk about that here, but I got to make sure that we get through the rest of this news here that ties into the ground fighting before I get to the air battle that happened over Ukraine today. But moving on from that, we also got more proof today that the Ukrainians are still in control of Krynky and are still, in fact, having soldiers inside of Krynky, that we got to see some video footage of some Ukrainians traveling across the Dnipro River with some fog cover on a small boat. You know that song. It's Hey Sokolia, which is some old Slavic song about how Poland, Ukraine, and Russia formed. It's actually a very old song, but still, when you see them riding on the boat, the heavy fog cover gives them a little bit of protection from drones, but of course, if a drone's flying through the area and gets within visual distance of them, it still will be a good bit of trouble. But nevertheless, the video here is once again confirming that the Ukrainians are in control of Krynky, otherwise they wouldn't be sending reinforcements because there wouldn't be anything to reinforce. But moving on from that clip and on into one of our last ones, and around Krynky on the ground, we did get to see a HIMARS hitting even more Russians near the area of Kazachi Lahari, and here's the clip. Or we're going to be muting that, but... But still, we can see the Russians wandering around the street. And we can see a Star Wars reference. That was
that was a Star Wars
Palpatine.
character?
Yeah.
Oh, I was about to say, that guy doesn't look Ukrainian.
Wait, I gotta hear this. Wait, that was a Ukrainian Star Wars? He said something in Ukrainian. He went, Sebaldna. I was like, what the hell? That's not what he said in the movie. Dude, imagine if in Star Wars, the Emperor Palpatine said, this will require approval from the Senate. And then, Mace Windu said, not yet. And then in response to that, instead of Palpatine saying, I am the Senate, he went, Sebaldna. To be like, man, what a shot.
What if he said, Suka Bliat?
Suka Bliat. They'd be like, he's Putin, he's too dangerous to be left alive. But anyways, moving on from that, we can see these Russians wandering down the street. The HIMARS is, of course, dialing in the coordinates as we speak. And they're throwing in another reference, this time a Sylvester Stallone reference from some movie, and the HIMARS got him.
Yeah, I did it. The Ukrainians actually did it though this time. Like they actually got it done.
Oh, they
and
really
still speak right.
Oh, they really did. But anyways, with that, we can see that the Ukrainians are pulling out the HIMARS still in the area, and they're still quite effective at quelling the Russians. But speaking of which, really quickly, I have to also cover two more things that kind of happened in the rear lines near Krynky. We did get to hear that a Russian unit that is involved in the fight around Krynky is apparently not being paid due to some kind of a Russian army bureaucratic issue, because now the excuse for not paying these guys isn't, that they just don't care. It's that you're in the wrong part of the front line from where your unit should be, therefore we're not paying y'all, which is insane. But anyways, I'm going to show y'all the clip and of course read the translation, because it seems as though this Russian unit is running into the time-old tradition of not getting money. So here's the clip. Let's start with the fact that we found out that we are now in Russia, in the Russian Federation.
Oh, that's a shocker.
Wow. Annexed Crimea, a part of Russia? Really a shocker. How do we find out? Some servicemen began to block the accounts of the judiciary. The judiciary makes it a request to the Ministry of Defense. The Ministry of Defense replies that we are not in the SVO. As for the islands are located on the Dnipro River. If you look at the map from the village of Krynky, the islands are not occupied by us. I don't know who said it, who came up with it, who gave such a command that the islands are occupied by us. In fact, they throw people to the ground. They shoot with mortars, they shoot with AGSs, shooting battles. This guy describes war in a nutshell. They fire at us, they shoot guns, shooting battles, gunfights, big fights, big guns. It's like, what does this guy not get? Like, does he not get that they're in a war? I mean, obviously, the Ukrainians are going to be shooting at him. It's not a party, but people die in an attempt to get there. This guy is very poetic, by the way.
Also, what does any of this have to do with getting paid, like, as a soldier? It's like he's talking about taking islands and stuff. It's like, what's that have to do with you getting a salary?
We get there when we get there. But he's about to get to it. A tanker and AGS hit a boat or a mortar. It is not clear. 7 people just went to the bottom, risking their lives. We go there. 2 boatmen. 5. They were just blown up. They are written off, as I understand, just lost their lives or something like that. People get wounded there. They can't even evacuate for 2 days. People rot under shelling. In short, we were thrown, it turns out. Our command gives false information. And then he never
said what the reason was. He never said it. He literally spoke in circles like the Russians love to do. He's doing the exact same thing that he's saying the commanders are doing about his pay, talking in circles.
Dude, that man whipped out a full Vladimir Putin. He said, we are not being paid here in this special military operation. To explain this, we have to go back to the very beginning of currency, around 2000 BC. Like, it's like, what the hell? It's like, he didn't even get to the part where he explained why they weren't getting paid. He starts off the whole thing by going, we're not getting paid, here's why. And then he never gets to the part where they're not getting paid. Anyways, apparently these Russians are complaining about something. We don't really know what it is, but we'll be keeping an eye on them and seeing if they do anything funny in the future, because I have a feeling with these guys, with that kind of intelligence, something hilarious is brewing up in the background that we're going to see happening in the future. They're probably going to get into one of those camp fights where, like, they're like, camp fight or food fight. Instead of it being a food fight, they're just going to whip out AK-74s and just start blasting bastards. Oh, man. But anyways, moving on from that and into Radensk, we did see something that I gotta say we kind of are able to confirm at this point. Apparently, somehow, either through the approval of Starlink or not, the Russians are getting their hands on a decent amount of Starlinks at this point, and it does look like they're actually starting to rely on them to use for their drone forces, much like the Ukrainians are using them as well. So I'm going to be showing you all this clip. And also some people are going to say, well, this is a standalone clip. Rest assured, I had about 3 or 4 of these clips today. I didn't want to show all of them to be repetitive, but we do have one right here showing that the Russians are starting to get their hands on Starlinks, and from what we understand, they're actually counting on them to be usable, and they are usable. So here's the clip.
Да, хорошая была история. Веселая. Все. Вот оно. Все, что осталось. Здесь навесик был вот этот вот. Вот такой аккуратный навесик был. И вот он вход. Вот здесь стоял Starlink. Это мы уже вот это раскидали. Вот этой стеной полностью придавило. То мы ее расколотили. Вот он вход в нашу норку. Вот так вот.
That's tough
Здесь
work
пацаны
for
отдыхали,
Russians.
Сармат сел покушать там.
Oh, that's their bunk. Ew, dude. That's their bunk. Ew, gross, dude. Like, I bet you there's like, I bet you when they go to sleep at night, like a mold crawls inside of their bodies down here. Like, this is pretty bad.
Разложил.
Man, the marmot probably comes out down here and says, "Hey, hello there, get out of my house."
I know, you're in the wrong house, guy.
Я успел только к ним заскочить и услыхал ее. Мы у них там засели. А Тунгус здесь выползал полетать, поработать.
See him
Вот
poking his
такая
head back out as he's
тема.
talking about Starlink
Если
and their
тема
bunk
башни
and everything.
залетела, нехерово так вообще вскрыло. Кабеля все перебило, вот здесь, которые у нас туда шли, вон там на вынос. Здесь, которые кабеля шли, все перебило, короче. Электричество, ну, выноса все, короче, на радейку, на дроны. Вот так вот. Самая быстрая карьера Старлинка в истории Старлинка.
We see him showing a Starlink here. This is actually the front of the Starlink system. Of course, this one's been blown to smithereens, so it's not an intact one, but nevertheless, it is showing that the Russians are starting to get their hands on an exorbitantly high amount of Starlinks. Like, we've seen the Ukrainians destroying Starlinks. We're starting to see the Russians talking about Starlinks that they have. And we're starting to get a picture that these things are actually becoming pretty populous on the Russian side over a very short amount of time. And from what we also know, apparently within the U.S. government, specifically within Congress, which is the one that really investigates things like this, there are some serious questions being raised as to how these Starlink systems are making it into the Russian hands and whether they really are all operational or not, because they really shouldn't be, considering that the Department of Defense is kind of subsidizing at this point Starlink's profits that they make off of the usage of the system.
Теперь он как детская погремушка.
There's the back of Starlink. It sounds like it's filled with rocks, a very Russian trait. See him picking up the pieces quite gently. He treated those pieces of the Starlink more gently than he treats his wife on a day where the dinner was cooked badly. But when you see him here showing off more of the Starlink, the damage to it. Why the hell is he taking pictures of this like it's an NTSB crash investigation?
He's probably going to try to make a warranty claim on it.
And we see them showing that it is a Starlink. Standard actuated.
It's not. Wait a minute, they got high performance on a internet router thing.
Dude, they got this.
What
thing,
does that mean?
They got this thing with nitrous mode, man. Like,
oh, man. They're gonna put the V8 on the what flat high performance and high performance. Like somebody that knows what is going on with these things, like let me know what that means. I've never seen high performance before on an internet satellite thing.
Hang on, I gotta pull this up. Okay, so we actually have the Starlink website right here. And, you know, doesn't really matter. Because to be honest with y'all, something that we found a little interesting is that we have requested to be monetized on Twitter 6 months ago, and we still have not gotten a response. Other people have requested to be monetized, and were monetized within, like, 2 weeks. And we're still waiting. And we have a feeling it's for a specific reason, because we have talked somewhat negatively about Musk's actions in the past, and so we have a feeling that there may be a little bit of bias there if that ever made it to him, and that's why we're not being monetized. But anyways, beyond that, standard. Okay, so standard's literally just a diving board. Standard actuated is this little stand right here. High performance is this one, so you just get a wider Starlink. And then flat high performance is just literally like a flat board on the floor. So it's really just different ways to mount the system.
It's like I want the crappy one. Give me the standard one. I don't want the best connection. Give me that low one.
I want
You'd think they just make them all the same, like, you know, where they're all like high performance. Why would you like sell a low performance one and a high performance one?
Yeah, I would have to say it doesn't make any sense at all, and I don't really know what the difference here. Well, let's see, best for residential users and everyday internet applications like streaming, video calls, online gaming, and more. What about high performance? Business and enterprise applications. It allows better speeds at high temperatures, can connect to more satellites, and is more resilient to extreme environments. And then flat.
It says best for the power user.
The power! But anyways, this
power,
one...
strength.
This one... strength! Power! I mean, yeah. Dude, I'm telling you, man, that guy was crazy. But anyways,
he was nuts.
This one is apparently designed for mobility applications in challenging environments. I don't know what the hell this means. It's literally just a board. Yeah, I mean, this is literally just a flat board that they're marketing in different ways, and they're telling you that that's ridiculous. I mean, I'm not even going to go into that anymore, but still, the Russians are getting Starlinks, and there are some questions being raised as to how they're getting the Starlinks, why they have Starlinks, and what to do about that, and how in the world that's going to be curtailed in the future. But moving on from that, and getting on to something that Matthew was talking about a little bit earlier, and we were kind of bringing up, I'm going to bring this down here for y'all, because we were talking about how Krynky has been so seriously leveled over the past few months of fighting that the 36 Marines have been involved in inside of Krynky. And a lot of that leveling has actually come from the use of the Russian Air Force. This is one of the few areas of the front where we see the Russian Air Force being used a higher amount throughout most of the latter part of this war. And we have seen that another Su-34 was shot down today. Another one today. 2 of them were shot down yesterday, and before that, I think there was another 2 that were shot down the day before that. So now we're up to 5 Su-35s being shot down over really like a 4-day period, and around 2 Su-35s also being shot down within that 4-day period. The Russian Air Force has lost nearly 10 actual combat aircraft, and this is becoming a very high number as time keeps going. And from what I'm starting to understand, and if I can put the pieces together and make a logical inference, I believe that the massive spike of Su-34 losses comes alongside the mass introduction and use of the Fab 500 glide bomb kits that require these Su-34s to climb up to a fairly high altitude and then drop the bombs from there. This is something that I think the Russians are not going to learn from, because the Fab 500 glide kit is something that is fairly new to the Russians, and they've started to try and pump these things out as much as they can. To take y'all back to yesterday's footage and show y'all one of these things again, just to show y'all why I think this, because we talked about this in depth yesterday. Here are the Fab 500s with the glide kits. They only mounted 4 of these onto an Su-34. This Su-34 climbs up to about 6,000 to 7,000 feet. They drop off these glide bombs at that altitude, and at that altitude, it's estimated that these glide bombs have about an additional 10 to 15 miles of range on them, or maybe even 20 if they're really pushing it and the wind's behind them. But when this Su-34 drops the bombs and rolls over, you're going to see it right here in a second. They roll over so hard, they're about to actually have to try and avoid the glide bombs as they're on their way towards their targets. And as this Su-34 starts to dive, we can see it cranking, trying to make sure that any SAMs coming their way will bleed energy before it makes it to the Su-34, hopefully making it quicker to evade. It's showing that the Russian Air Force does understand that these missions are going to be dangerous, and I would believe that they're probably a lot more dangerous than the Russians even believed them to be at the outset, because the amount of attrition that the Russian Air Force has taken over such a short duration of time trying to use these glide bombs, and the amount of Su-34s they've lost as a result, is certainly showing that this new kind of a strategy, with the Russians attempting to use their brand new glide bombs, is certainly not a smart strategy in this kind of a war, especially with the Ukrainians deploying one of their Patriot missile batteries to the front lines, which I would believe is probably why most of these aircraft are being lost. An implementation of a poor strategy, and also the implementation of one of the most advanced air defense systems on the entire surface of the Earth. So going off of that, that's why the Russian Air Force is taking such high losses, but it's also equally why so many cities like Krynky are being flattened to the ground, because while they're still very dangerous missions, a lot of these missions are going ahead, and as long as that Su-34 drops its glide bombs at the correct area, those glide bombs are going to hit their target, and we're starting to see that they are causing a lot of damage, like in the city of Krynky. But you know, something else that has caused a lot of questioning and a lot of talk, and we finally kind of got an answer to it today, is where the hell is Gerasimov? Everybody has been asking that for like 8 weeks, or something along those lines. It's been an incredibly long time. Gerasimov was rumored to be in a special kind of a military complex near Sevastopol that ended up getting hit by a Ukrainian bomb, and it was supposed that Gerasimov was killed in that explosion. And no one saw him for weeks afterwards, so it was fairly well assumed he was dead. But finally, we've seen at least what the Russians are claiming to be a public appearance of the guy. Now, take it with a grain of salt, because obviously we don't know if this is a real public appearance. We do know that they pretended like Viktor Solokolov was alive until they dismissed him, and we all knew he was dead for months. So here's the clip, but supposedly it's showing Gerasimov arriving in Ukraine, to award some soldiers for their bravery and valor in combat. But here's the clip that they showed of Gerasimov today. I want to let you know that we need 3 pastries back on the plane when I get here. My gut must stick out about 3 inches further.
He's sitting in the same seat that Shoigu was sitting in when he looked out the window, saw Prigozhin standing on the wing.
Shoigu! Dude, I have not done that in like ages. Dude, his posture is dog water, dude. Look at that posture. What the hell is that? He's like
really. It's like he always looks like death warmed over. He looks like a ghoul. Look at that guy. He's looking like, man, he's looking a little ghastly today, I say.
Dude, this guy is giving the eye. It's like he's like, jeez.
Man, those that award right there looked a little German.
Geschlägt mal Leitmann in die Deutsche Bahn.
Something like that. Thank you, Mr. Ghoul, for this award. I appreciate it. Would you care for some platelets and some plasma in your blood?
Dude, this is a motley crew getting some medals. I mean, there's some guys in here that look like this is Hermie from like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. This guy wants to be a dentist. I think you got this guy down here. Like, you got this guy down here. He was alive for the Great Patriotic War, and now he's fighting again for Russia. So, I don't know. That's a little odd. Also, they got them standing in the KGB execution room handing out medals.
Yeah, really. And it's like, is Gerasimov supposed to be inspiring these guys to, like, you know, fight harder or something? He's standing there looking like it's all over for him or something, and he has, like, no inflection in his voice whatsoever. Dude, these guys are, like, walking to their death or something with this guy in charge.
Dude, this guy looks like a husband that just came home from working a 9-to-5 in a cubicle, and he just hates his life, hates his wife, hates his kids, and he just walked in the door. That's the kind of posture this guy has. And look at that gut. Like, oh my lord, dude, this guy's got a whole gut sticking out there. Like, okay, it's perfectly fine to have a gut, like, I'm not gonna lie, but in the military, you know, the gut is kind of a discourage. You know, it's not a good look.
He's a heavy vodka drinker, I think. Going to battle and fight or something, I don't know.
Dude, he's sitting there saying, it is great to have you all here. I haven't had the pastry in 3 minutes, and I'm feeling that my gut is shrinking. Oh my lord. What the hell is up with the tables? Dude, they got Ratnik table covers. Like, I've never seen that.
Ratnik for a Vatnik.
Освобождению Авдеевки и действий на этом направлении. Ну, на сегодняшний день главное...
He's here imparting wisdom onto him, I'm supposing.
Освобождена. Надо сказать, что освобождена достаточно короткие сроки, вот, но этому предшествовал длительный...
Get those guys some bigger chairs. I mean, come on. They got them sitting in the schoolyard chairs and they're like 6 foot tall and 300 pounds. Like, come on.
What is this guy doing?
He's
what kind of posture is that?
That guy looks
like that guy looks like he needs to go to the restroom right now. Like, it looks like he cannot wait. Because like his shoulders are so far forward, it looks like he's been put on the torture rack and then just taken off of it for this video. What is wrong with this guy? Like, there's something bad wrong with him. Like, someone get him some help. We see him also like, look, he's still got the pose. He's got the pose through the whole meeting. And now he's getting up and pointing at some crap with a pencil and just, like, poking at it like it's some kind of a dead animal.
I think he was extremely nervous. I think that was that look. He was like, I don't want to have to stand up in front of this ghoul and give a presentation. This could be my last. He's like, if the ghoul is, like, ready to end it all, which it seems like he is, it's like, he could end me next.
Yeah, man. And then this guy gets up and he's like, we have positions here, here, and here. And then Gerasimov in response goes, blah, 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 blah. Very good, blah. But anyways.
Send them out there or something, I don't know.
Me and my beautiful wife, Camilla. But anyways, moving on from that, it doesn't really instill a lot of confidence to see a video like that, to think that he actually still exists. Because, honestly, the existence of such an uninspiring and lame-looking general it seems fiction, even for a group like the Russians. And a lot of y'all have actually had some ideas and some input on what y'all think of the video, because a lot of people actually believe today that this is just straight up propaganda being put out by the Russians and the guy's still dead somewhere, and this is some old footage that they pulled out from maybe months ago when he was alive. And Matthew, I know that you have some really interesting theories cooked up, and you've been hearing a lot about it as well.
So there's really no consensus among the LSA viewership tonight whether or not this footage is actually the real deal or if it's been backdated. You know, a lot of people seem to be saying that it's actually fake and that Gerasimov is actually still missing, and that this footage is actually old and being replayed like it's new to make it seem like he's still in command and he's still alive. And I would have to tend to agree with that myself. That footage shows us not even the area in which he's located. We're simply told he's near Avdiivka, and he's in some kind of underground concrete bunker that looks very, very nondescript. So I don't think we can deduce that he's actually still alive from this footage. And it could be another ruse, basically that the Russians pulled with that Black Sea Fleet commander, trying to pretend like he was alive, and then later they'll say, oh, we dismissed him, he's off his post, and you don't have to worry about him any longer. But only a small percentage think that he's actually still alive, and there's a larger percentage that needs more info first. So Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to be honest, I'm kind of unsure, because a lot of people are saying that it's fake, and a decent amount of people are saying that he actually is alive. I can't really tell y'all for sure, because this wouldn't be the first time that the Russians have pulled out old footage and pretended like someone was alive. They even did it for Prigozhin when they were kind of a little confused as to whether they really wanted him to be dead or whether they didn't. Because many of y'all remember that after Prigozhin died on that jet that was shot down north of Moscow, about 2.5 weeks later, some footage came out that supposedly showed that he was in Africa riding around on an Antonov 22. And the Russians put that out on their own to make it look like he was alive, and then it came out later he had not been in Africa. That was in fact old footage. He is in fact dead. So they tried to pull a little bit of a confusing stunt there to confuse the public into believing he was maybe alive still. And this could be the same thing for Gerasimov. I mean, we have not seen him at an actual meeting with Putin. Usually someone at his level shows up at meetings with Putin pretty regularly, and we have not seen him there. And also, it's honestly, I just can't really tell y'all for sure. Who knows if the guy is really alive or dead? I would have to say, right now, he's in that Schrodinger kind of level of existence. We don't really know if he is alive or dead, and I'm going to leave it up to y'all on what y'all believe. But with that, I also have to tell y'all a little bit more about some interesting air defense, and specifically the amazing work of some partisans inside of Crimea. You see, the partisans are always busy and working hard to try and figure out where the Russians are in Crimea and to try and highlight their locations for Ukrainian forces to possibly attack later on. A partisan was able to do that today, quite heroically actually, because they drove right up to the Saki airfield and ended up taking a video of one of the S-400 batteries that, oh man, dude, why? They removed it. We can't even show it to y'all. It was an actual film made by a Ukrainian partisan that was showing the exact positions of the S-400 battery near the Saki airfield, trying to lay out where they were, give landmarks and points that the Ukrainians could work off of to try and attack the battery. And then the video got removed. But nevertheless, it was very interesting to look at, and once again showing the brave work of Ukrainian partisans who tirelessly, behind the scenes, quietly try and attempt to disrupt the Russian forces wherever they may be in occupied Ukraine, occupied Crimea, and occupied everywhere else, even inside the Russian Federation, trying to cause as much damage to the Russians as they possibly can and give the Ukrainians the best fighting chance every single day. I gotta say, if people deserve a bit of thanks, it is the partisans. They very rarely ever get the kind of praise that they deserve, especially for the kind of damage that they've been able to inflict over the course of the war. From what we know, most attacks deep inside of Russia, like at Chelyabinsk, were probably partisan attacks and ended up causing a very decent amount of damage to the Russian infrastructure and Russian forces across the entirety of the country of Russia. So I'd have to say, if y'all would want, make sure to give a thank you to the partisans, because they do amazing work every single day, no doubt about it. But moving on from that and up into Russia, because we have a little bit of Russian news to cover, and it was actually some pretty funny news. Well, kind of funny in a way, but kind of a little bit angering and sad in a way. Many of y'all will know that the Navalny folks inside of Russia that have been angered over the death of Navalny have been going out and trying to make that vocal. And the Russians, of course, have been arresting them and putting down an iron fist immediately to try and quell this stuff so that way it doesn't go out of hand very quickly. And it seems as though, from what we're already seeing, they're already pushing a lot of these folks into military service. And so this is something that, I gotta say, it's just bizarre to think. This is actually a picture here of the local commissar's office after one of these Navalny supporters got arrested and then released from jail. And it's telling him that he has to now report to the commissar's office to be able to be put into the military. Because this right here says commissariat, pretty much right there. So that is the commissariat's office. And the commissar in Russia is the recruiting office. So going off of this is not a good look at all. And it looks like the Russians are already figuring out the way to suppress the opposition, is that if they rise up, to immediately put them into the Russian military and send them to Ukraine as cannon fodder. So that way they can make sure that political dissent remains low, because the people who would dissent against the Russian government are dead now inside of Ukraine. Pretty messed up when you think about it. And just bizarre to look at that. And a lot of people have been talking about that as well, and talking about all kinds of things going on in Russia. And to add to that a little bit, because, you know, of course, the folks who are dissenting, the Russian government obviously views them as public enemy number one, and they, you know, left unchecked, can actually pose to be a serious threat to the Russian military's prowess inside of Russia and around the world. Well, not really around the world, but really just inside of Ukraine. And this is something very interesting, because it's not just the political dissidents that are the enemy of the Russian Federation. It is people who tell the truth about how badly the Russian military is doing. And to be honest with y'all, that's even a stretch, because this guy didn't tell the whole truth, he just told a part of it, and the Russian military decided that he was a threat. I'm talking about the Russian military blogger that ended up committing suicide just today. To get y'all a little bit of information on this guy was Andrei Morozov, and he was talking on his Telegram about the losses, and I'll be trying to get you all the full pictures here, so let me go get you all the translated version of this. So, this is the Telegram post right here. A serviceman of the 4th Motorized Rifle Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces, Andrei Morozov, known as the blogger of the channel They Write to Us from Yanina, committed suicide after threats from the commander of the 4th Brigade, who forced him to delete a post about the heavy losses of the Russian army during the capture of Avdiivka. Morozov, in a post deleted by order, wrote that from October 2023 to February 2024, the Russian army lost more than 16,000 people killed and 300 armored vehicles near Avdiivka, which was widely circulated on the internet. Morozov today published a suicide letter in which he accused the Russian military command and personally propagandist Vladimir Solovyov, Yulia I'm not even going to try and pronounce that last name, Artur Gasparyan, and of wanting to kill him. Propaganda led to the suicide of the Russian propagandist. And I believe we actually have the note right there. I believe that was the one published by the Russian Mill blogger. And y'all might actually remember this. We actually posted the guy's Telegram post on our news. It was that post. Y'all may remember that. I said even Russian military bloggers are not looking at this battle as being a successful one. And we showed that guy's Telegram post here on the channel. It's actually in this amalgamation of stuff that we have down here in Avdiivka. And one of the commanders of the brigades that was fighting in Avdiivka said, "How dare you tell the truth of what happened? Take that down or I'm going to have you killed." And so then this guy took it down and then he killed himself. So I guess the 4th Brigade commander kind of got everything he wanted. But still, that is absolutely insane to think that the Russians hide the truth so badly that this guy was so scared for his life he ended up taking his own life so that way he wouldn't have to wait for the 4th Brigade commander just to choose to snuff him out anyways. That is pretty freaking wild. And a lot of people have been saying that this seems to be almost like a great purge in its own right, more so like the Great Leap Forward inside of China, where people started to kind of snuff each other out because they thought that they were going against the real cause of what the Chinese were doing. And nowadays it looks like the Russians are kind of having a great leap forward of their own, but of course, like the other one, it's a great leap backwards. And a lot of people have been talking about that death, the suicide of this guy, and what it really means. Like, is this Putin expanding his purge? What is it really? And Matthew, what do you think?
All right. So we asked the audience what they thought about this Russian blogger basically taking a permanent nap, allegedly at his own hands. And it looks like the majority of people believe that Putin is expanding his purge. And 24% said Putin is conducting routine hits, and only 2% said it seemed like a mere accident. And on this one, I gotta tell you, the official story is the guy decided to take a permanent nap. He committed seppuku. But in my opinion, I don't think that really happened. I personally think that he was knocked off. We've heard before people, that have allegedly taken permanent naps by their own hand that were actually killed by the Russian government, and it was staged to look like that, so that way it sort of went over without a problem. It seems to me like Putin is expanding his purge. He's been killing off Navalny. He's killing off all kinds of people all around the country, and it seems like he's getting more wild and loose with it as time goes on, because I think he's really not fearing any consequences anymore, because he's gone so far deep in the rabbit hole of invading Ukraine, hurting innocent civilians, and even hurting his own people. So it seems pretty obvious to me. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to be entirely honest. I would have to say it probably is an expansion of the purge, or it may be that the guy actually did commit suicide, but it is an expansion of the purge through fear. Like, they were wanting to make sure that this guy stayed quiet. He was probably going to end up a lot like Igor Girkin inside a prison for what he said. But this guy decided that he wasn't going to wait around for that, and then his future death, he was just going to, end it now. But I have a feeling that this really is some kind of an extension of some sort of a purge from the Russian government, or a iron-fisted will to crush dissent, or any kind of non-good speak, non-positive talk inside of the Russian Federation. And it looks like even Russian military bloggers can fall ill to that. Now, this is one thing
Are you telling me that they're killing bloggers now too? Oh my goodness.
Oh my god! Luckily, we're not Russian bloggers, but beyond that, one thing I gotta say though, that is really, really interesting about that, is that the bots will come in here. Well, I gotta talk about the bots for a minute, because y'all know that they're always coming in here and we're always banning them. The bots will come in here and go, "Oh, hard cope. Oh man, hard cope," and they'll say something like that. But then the Russians cope so hard that when someone actually even gets a glimmer of the truth out about what's really happening inside of Russia's military, they end up getting so scared from the backlash, they end up committing suicide or being killed by the Russian government. That tells me who's really coping in the war, because I haven't seen a single pro-Ukraine blogger, or whatever you want to call them, off themselves because of public backlash. I have not seen that once. I'd be pretty shocked if we did, but beyond that, this is something that I gotta say, it really shows you the difference in between the Western world and the Russian world, and a lot of people still don't get that. Some people still think that the Russians are the heroes of the story, and I can promise you that they are the absolute villains of the story in every single way. If you really see what happens in Russia, it is a hell on earth. I mean, it's a hell on earth to live there normally. It's a hell on earth in every single way. And also...
Yeah, they're cold-blooded killers. And also, I saw Hoodoo Texas say in the live chat that Gherkin, who's still in prison, is now wondering if his jail time is going to turn into a death sentence. And that's something I saw yesterday. I mentioned it, I think, a few days back, that the wife of Gherkin is now in an outcry in concern for her husband who's locked up in Russia. And honestly, I think Gherkin actually might be next, because if Putin is expanding his purge and he's getting a little bit more free with who he's knocking off every single day, it wouldn't be too far-fetched to think that Gherkin was next, because he has said some dastardly things in the past. And that's what they did to Navalny. They locked him up. And then when enough time passed by and they kind of felt it was the opportune moment, then they hit him. And that might happen with Gherkin too.
And also, by the way, just to kind of like further this point that I was talking about while the purges are going on, and we're talking about that, this is what average Russia looks like. This is just a random street I dropped down onto in Tambov, and these buildings are still being used, lived in, and occupied. And it looks like squalor. I mean, Tambov is like a normal town. I'd say this is equivalent in America to, say, Trenton, New Jersey. I mean, it's like a normal town.
Gary.
Well, say what?
Gary.
No, man. Like, Gary is the literal worst in America. This is like an average town in Russia, and look how bad it gets. Like, this is horrendous. And like, you got all this overgrowth here, and then you get over here, And you got these these buildings do not look like they're in good shape. These kids are going to die from tetanus. Like, just wait. But
Oh,
let's see.
damn. That's dark.
I mean, like, that's dark, but it's true. Like, this place just looks terrible. It's dog water. It's crap. And people actually think, oh, look, like, like, I can't get over this. Tucker Carlson going to Russia and then going, look at how well you can live over here. Look how cheap the groceries are. It's like, you got people living in abject poverty everywhere. Of course the groceries are cheap. They can't afford them anyways. Like, that's just ridiculous to me. But beyond that,
And as he got back on the jet going, ah! And then he's coming all the way back to America. It's like, well, why are you coming back here if you love it in Russia so much? You're leaving so soon.
yeah, but to be honest with you, Matthew, that seems like that kind of crap that he was saying is the exact same kind of goofy stuff that we have heard a little bit here on YouTube. Just to fill y'all in, some people were in Ukraine before the war even started. They're now covering the war in Ukraine. Kind of doing virtue signaling stuff. And their entire channel before the war started was talking about how people from the West who make, like the average median income here in America, which is like $60,000 US, ought to just go and travel to Ukraine and live there because it's just so freaking heckin' chonkers cheap, y'all. Just look at it. I mean, you can get like an apartment for $100 a month because, people don't make a lot in Ukraine. People don't make a lot in Russia. And that's also why a lot of them are kind of like halfway not really pro-Ukraine. They're just halfway just wanting to make sure that they can continue to live in low-rent apartments or low-rent places in Ukraine because they were there before the war doing that, and that's what their whole channel was about. So, I find that kind of interesting that Tucker kind of said the same thing because it's like the reason why it's cheap in most of Eastern Europe is because the quality of life there is a lot less than what it is in the West. And they make a lot less money than people do in the West. I mean, even Ukraine, which is a little bit better off than the Russians on a GDP per capita level, and let me go type that in, Ukraine GDP per capita. It is, oh, wow, wait, hang on, Russia GDP per capita. Okay, so I'm not going to lie. This is actually a very shocking number. $4,835 US per year is what an average Ukrainian makes annually.
That's it?
That's it. $4,800 US. That's even compared to
I wonder
Russia's
if that really
12,000.
buys you much.
In Ukraine, it would buy you an average kind of a living. If you went below that number, then you would be in poverty in Ukraine. If you go above that number, then you're doing much better than most Ukrainians. But that is a very low number. That's actually about 3 times as low as the Russian number, which is actually kind of shocking because usually they say that the Ukrainians are doing very well economically, even pre-war. And it looks like they did go through some ebbs and flows, especially after the Maidan. It looks like the economy went through some tumult because, of course, the Donbass conflict happened. But nevertheless, it is very interesting to note that the reason why things are cheaper in countries like Ukraine and Russia, it's not because their economy is just so much better and it's so much more magical. It's that people literally could not afford anything that's Western priced. You can even see that in America. Just in case y'all didn't know, there is different prices from different stores here in America. A good example of that is when we moved from the old city we used to live in here in Alabama to the largest city in Alabama, which is Birmingham. And you could see the price jump in everything, just moving from one city to the next. Papa John's in the original city that we used to live in is about half the price of Papa John's pizza here in Birmingham. It's like that everywhere. Where people are making more money, the prices are going to be more expensive. It just matches. Like, the prices will match the income that people make. And you can try and outspeed that through certain means, but it'll always catch up. And that's something very interesting to note about the whole Russian thing, and people like Tucker Carlson know that. And that's one thing I'm to hit home. People like Tucker Carlson know that's the case. They know that in poorer countries, it's going to cost a lot less to buy things like groceries. But that's also relative. And saying something like that is openly trying to mislead the public into thinking something that is not true. And that's something I gotta say. You can't really do a lot to dissuade that because, it's his show. He can say whatever he wants and it's a free country. And as long as he's able to publish it somewhere, he can publish it and people can watch it. But I feel like people ought to be a lot more attentive to that kind of misinformation that comes out from stuff like that. Because if you know anything about economics, you'll know that that's just completely misguiding people. But anyways, moving on from that Russian news and on into Kyiv, we got a really interesting video today showing us what some Ukrainians are doing to strike back at the Russians from inside of their very own homes inside of Kyiv. And here's the clip. I'll be showing y'all this. It's a very interesting one from none other than United 24.
Capital Kyiv, the war is always hanging over your head, a little bit like the sword of Damocles. You can just be going about your day or sleeping peacefully in your bed, and in 1 second it can all be over, just like the lives of the family that used to live in the building behind me. That's why many locals have decided to devote their spare time to supporting the guys fighting in the trenches. And today we want to visit some of them and show you what Ukrainians do from the comfort of their home to support their army. In apartments like these, civilians like Eugene Zingerman established so-called drone kitchens, turning their homes into makeshift workshops where they assemble first-person view or FPV drones that the Ukrainian army is desperately relying on to thwart the Russian invasion.
Hi, my name is Eugene. I'm a small business owner and a marketer. I own like a children's book shop and an advertising agency. We are a company of very old friends, and one of our friends, he's just from the start of war, he's serving. He offered us, if you want, I can teach you how to assemble drones, and you can help the army by assembling them and donating them. Actually, all of us said yes, and we bought a few drones, a few kits for drones for our own money. That's how it all started, and still going.
The frame, as most parts, comes from China. After assembling the basic structure, the difficult part begins.
After the motors, you assemble this flight controller. After that, you connect its second part, connect it together. And on this second part, you already put video receiver called VTX. Also, we will show you this antennas, video receiver antenna connects to VTX, signal receiver antenna for controls connects to flight controller, and camera also connects to this, and power for sure.
But not all parts can be found on the internet. Luckily for the gang, their friend Sergei, a game designer, owns a 3D printer.
Yeah!
So this is my 3D printer, and with this stuff I print various things like parts.
I was about to say, that was a weird looking 3D printer,
like
if that was just the case of it.
For antennas, and well, it helps.
Since there are many kinds of drones, they require custom parts fitted for each specific model. After assembly, it's time to get real. First, they test the battery.
Time to get real.
Man, they're getting real.
If all systems are operational, they plug it into the computer for a final configuration.
This is a beta flight. That's the software to calibrate, to put firmware into the drone. So you see that accelerometer is working. That's a good sign already. And now we will try to test the motors. Moment of truth. Yeah. So all the engines work perfectly fine.
It takes the guys around 4 hours to assemble one drone. The total cost is 10,000 hryvnias, around $270.
And that's really cheap. Oh my lord.
Dude, that's cheap, man. Also, that's impressive. They figured out how to assemble these things like that, because I've looked into assembling one from scratch like they're doing, and it gets complicated quick, and you got to know what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, they're able to pump these things out one every 4 hours, so, you know, at least 2 a day minimum. At $270 a pop, meaning it costs them about $500. I mean, that's not that bad when you're actually talking about it on a scale of economy. I mean, that's actually pretty good.
Soldiers will have to attach an explosive charge like an RPG-7 grenade, which can cost up to 500 USD.
Oh, never mind. It's okay. It got a lot more expensive
than the drone.
Okay, so now the drone costs about $770. So it's not that cheap.
A one-time use. But if used correctly, you can get value for your money, since any armored vehicle, any artillery gun, and any soldier is worth a lot more. That's why Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced plans to produce 1 million FPV drones for the Ukrainian armed forces in the coming year. That equals a monthly production rate of just over 83,000. But Eugene and his friends are up to the challenge.
After President Zelensky said in his speech that every Ukrainian can help and assemble such drones. Lots of people started to do like this. Maybe someone like assemble like 2-3 drones. Some groups like ours assemble much more. We all understand that we're doing something important. We're not spending this time, I know, assembling Legos or or drinking or playing some video games.
Wow, Matthew. This guy gets it. Like, this guy gets it. There's a war going on. There's no time for drinking in a bar and acting like it's a party, or, you know, playing some video games, you know, like, you know, I'm not gonna lie, Helldivers 2, great game, but Helldivers 2 is a game. You know, there's a war going on, a lot more important things, a lot more pressing things, and I like to see that this guy also gets it. He's got the war effort mentality, massive respect.
Yeah, we're doing something important, we understand that. It's great that we can socialize together, as you said, and also do this, like, important work.
Very humble fellow building the drones to save the country.
Yeah, saving the nation and that humble still. Really impressive stuff. But there's a QR code actually on screen if y'all want to go support that unit. United 24 actually put in a QR code. They'll take you directly to their website. That's going to be like one of the only times y'all see me openly sponsoring a group that isn't through YouTube Give or United 24 itself, because, you know, considering that United 24 sanctioned them, I'm giving them kind of like the green light. Apparently these folks are legit. So there's a QR code. But moving on from that, amazing work from those guys inside of their apartment in Kyiv, and certainly showing that everyone, big and small, can make a massive impact on the war effort, especially in the drone technology field, because that's a rapidly growing one, and heavy industry, major industry, can't even keep up with it at the current going rate. But with that, it's time for us to move on to the only location unknown news that we had tonight. But before we do, I want to make sure that we address some questions, because some of y'all have been throwing in some really interesting stuff. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so first up, with our very generous Super Chat donors of the night, we have a $20 donation from Georgie Milashev, who threw in some support last night as well. And thank you very much, Georgie, once again for helping to support the channel. And he says, after Russia falls, Iran, Syria are next. After they fall, China, North Korea will be isolated, and then Cuba, Venezuela are non-players, and world peace solved in 5 years, and democracies don't fight each other. Let's get it done, and dictators hold tight.
And thank you so much, Georgie, for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. And I would say that I think the most important one to take care of after Russia is China. It's always the major power players that really matter the most, and outside of that, I would say that we should always prioritize the smaller powers next, because usually without support from the great powers, the small powers have a really tough time getting by, and usually end up succumbing to just public pressure within their country, and social pressures as well. So I would actually say that after Russia falls, the major move should be to start severely crippling the Chinese economically. We should continue to try and incentivize industries moving from China to other countries. Some of the countries that we could try and incentivize their move to are countries like Vietnam, India, and Mexico, which are all largely moving into being American-friendly countries. Of course, Mexico is an American-friendly country. They're already a part of a post-NAFTA trade agreement. It's called the CUM. But beyond that, it is great to see that they are a part of an American-friendly trade alliance already. The Vietnamese also are as well. Funnily enough, they're becoming one of the larger importers to the United States. And India is actually an up-and-coming one. It's actually growing somewhat rapidly. And we could probably move a decent amount of Chinese-American industry or American-Chinese industry into India, just to make sure that in the short term, because, you know, I know a lot of people would like industry to return to America, but in the short term kind of a window, that most likely would not be possible. It would be very tough to do. So we would only be able to move them to other countries like India, Vietnam, and Mexico, where the labor is plentiful and very cheap. But beyond that, I think that is the main target next, is trying to deal with the Chinese. If we can throw their economy out from under them, they will be left upstream without a paddle. And beyond that, I would also have to say that Cuba and Venezuela, Cuba's never been a player. I mean, even, well, after the Cuban Missile Crisis happened, Cuba's never been a real player. There's just this weird communist freak show happening in the middle of the Caribbean. Nobody really cares about them, and I wouldn't care about them. Venezuela, however, I kind of care about them a little bit. because there is a decent amount of resources there as well. And on top of that, it is a larger country on the main continent of South America. So going off of that, I would say that they're actually a country I would care about a little bit. And it would probably be good to see some kind of an actual government change happen, because we have to remember that Venezuela was one of the largest oil producers in the Americas before their collapse a little while ago. And going off of that, it would probably be good to see their return, because with a friendly American nation in South America producing a large amount of oil, we can have a decent amount of power sway outside the United States if we were to buy oil from them, but also it would be a very safe and secure kind of a supply route. But beyond that, I would also have to say that Iran and Syria, well, Iran is actually a big one. I would have to say Syria is kind of a nothing to me, because once the Russians kind of get beat, they're not going to have absolutely anything to do with Syria. The Assad regime will fall with the fall of Russia. I will put money on that. But the Iranians will not, because the Iranians have gone with and without support over about the past 40 or so years, and they've never really been affected that much. So going off of that, I would say that the best solution to dealing with Iran would be to just deal with them directly. We can see that they're going to continue to support their terrorist groups throughout the entirety of the Middle East as long as they exist, and so dealing with them directly would probably be the best move possible, and trying to install a more democratic government, although that probably won't be entirely possible in Iran, putting in a full democracy. You could probably go for something like a constitutional monarchy or something along those lines. The Shah didn't really work. Not really that good of an idea. So we could find something a little bit more democratic than the Shah. That probably would be a pretty good move. So with all of that in mind, I hope that does address that well, and thank you so much once again for throwing in a very interesting idea, Georgy Milishev, and thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope I was able to address it well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Born in Ukraine, who throws in a $20 donation. And thank you very much for that support. And they said to the Borscht Fund, the Borscht. And they said, thanks for your hard work. And how about those Enforcer merch socks? And they said, let me have some of that.
I said they pray. But thank you so much for the support, Born in Ukraine. And I was actually informed tonight that apparently my new laugh is annoying. I don't know how I picked it up, but we'll be trying to work on that as time goes by. But beyond that, thank you so much for enjoying all of our hard work, and also enjoying it enough to find it worthwhile to support. And how about those Enforcer merch socks? I'll be honest with you, I have not thought about socks being put on the merch store. We're planning on having the merch store ready to go by the 2nd year anniversary of the founding of the Lee Spring Army, which is sometime in late March, but we will have to see about some socks. Like, what I was thinking about doing was having some patches, flags, t-shirts, mugs, and also some plushies, funnily enough. We're actually going to have 2 different plushies that I can think of off the bat. There's going to be the Marmot plushie, because everyone loves the Marmot. Oh, hello there! And then we're also going to have the LSA Honey Badger, because the LSA Honey Badger is still the official animal of the Lee Spring Army. And then we'll have a plushie for it as well, as it's stylized in real life. I think that would be really cool to have like some neat merch, because the way our merch store was organized last time, we really couldn't do a lot of cool merch ideas, because it was kind of limited due to the frame of what Teespring would kind of allow, because Teespring would only allow certain things because they could only make certain things, but they also handled all of the logistics in the background. But what kind of got us a little concerned after a while is that we ended up getting one of our shirts and from them, to give to a friend, and we weren't really happy with it. And so we want to make sure that the quality is top notch. And so by doing the merch store directly ourselves and handling all of that, we can actually make sure that everything is top of the line quality. But with that, I got to thank you for the support. I will look into getting some socks on the store. If a lot of support is there for a certain item, like socks or something like that, I will start looking into trying to make that a possible thing. But still, thank you so much once again for the support, Born in Ukraine. I hope that does address that well, and thank you so much for looking forward to that merch store, because we love to know that people want to have some more Enforcer merch. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the final question of this segment, and then we're going to be moving back into the news.
All right, and that one is going to go to Skip Tracer 007, who throws in a $20 donation, and thank you very much for that support as well. And he says, for your bot begone deletions, you were very quick. And I've gotten so quick over time. It's too good. It's too perfect. I've gotten so fast over time. It's a perfect phone call. It's a perfect click. A perfect delete. Oh my goodness. Oh man. But anyways, I have gotten quick with it over time, and I've been deleting bots for 2 years now out of this live chat. And really, my job's gotten easier over time because they used to flood in like crazy, and we had a small surge of bots come in probably about 2 or 3 days ago. I don't know where they came from. I guess Russia opened a new bot farm or something. But yes, bots be gone, indeed. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I would have to say, I absolutely love that Matthew's able to get rid of the bots quickly. Nightbot has not been here for a while, due to reasons. We're getting him back, though. Rest assured, Nightbot will be harassing.
We found out why he left.
Yeah, we found out why Nightbot left, so we're going to be bringing Nightbot back. But beyond that, even with Nightbot not here, Matthew's abilities to get rid of the bots has been absolutely incredible. And I've actually seen this, and I gotta say, the Late Spring Army is an amazing community, but if it wasn't for Matthew's ability to spot the bad eggs coming in and get rid of them, the LSA would be a little bit more of a murky community than it would normally be. And I gotta give a massive credit to Enforcer Matt for making it possible to delete these bots at the kind of speed and efficiency we have, because it makes the channel...
Thank you very much.
No problem at all, sir. No problem at all. But it makes the channel a lot more enjoyable, and it makes the live chat a lot more enjoyable as well. Put an LSA in the chat if you agree. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again, Skip Tracer, for appreciating Matthew's bot be gone strategies and tactics, because they certainly are helping this channel to be as smooth and as enjoyable a place as it ever has been. And so with that, hope that does address that well, and it's time for us to move on into our location unknown, our only one of the day, which is the Russian casualty report. And here it is. Ooh, a whopper.
Oh, it's pure juice today. Look at that. 7 Bobcats on the list. I'm telling you what. They forgot to add the plane, though. What are they doing, man? Come on.
Man, they be straight up juicing. 7 Bobcat skid steers destroyed, along with 1,130 Russian troops knocked out, along with 70 armored personnel carriers, 56 supply trucks, 13 tanks, 53 artillery pieces, 39 drones, 4 MLRSs, 1 cruise missile, and 3 anti-aircraft warfare systems, along with the 7 Bobcat skid steers.
Captain, she can't take much more of this, Captain.
Captain, she can't take much more of this, Captain. She's turning herself apart. Scotty, get on that engine and just rev it up. Aye, Captain. Starts shoving nitrous into the warp core. But anyways, beyond that, these losses are very high. And y'all all know it, just like Matthew said. Captain, the Russians, they can't keep up much more of this. Oh, man, what is that, a garbage scowl? Aye, you're talking about my enterprise, that we... But anyways, beyond that, still... absolutely incredible stuff. We are seeing that the Ukrainians are keeping up an amazing defense, and they are just absolutely hammering them. And when you see someone down here going, what happened to Avdiivka? What happened to your mum? But anyways, beyond that, we're now moving on from the location unknowns and moving into the northeastern front. The Russians have been trying to do a little bit of odd stuff up here. But, of course, the Ukrainians have been quelling them very well and forcing them back. The 128th has just been hammering the Russians. Here's the clip. Chad music included.
Here we can see the Russians in their natural habitat getting obliterated by the Ukrainian FPV drone. We can see the bomb explode directly atop the BTR and sending debris all over. We can now see it happening a second time, because the first time was funny, but the second time is a true classic. We can now see them bombing the Russians where they sleep. The Russian burrows are not that well hidden, most of them being on top of the ground. It is considered a poor evolutionary trait. And we can see that the FPV drones are now going in for a snack.
I like how they had a chess piece on that drone controller back there. Do you see that? There's like a checkmate button on it.
Man, where?
Down there in the bottom right, you saw that? Checkmate.
That'd be a rook. That'd be a
or
rook.
whatever. You know, it does the same thing. You can check them.
Whoa, what do you mean, man? What do you mean you can check them? But anyways, moving on from that clip, it is nice to see the 128th continuing to hammer the Russians in the north. And we also got to see the 48th Engineers using a meteorite on some Russian infantry. you ever wanted to hear some orchestral music and watch a mine-laying charge absolutely obliterate some Russian soldiers? Well, you're in luck. It's introducing the 48th Engineers Battalion.
Have you ever wanted to see a bomb go off in the middle of the forest while it's foggy in the morning? This ain't foggy, foggy London, but oh God have mercy, that was a shockwave off of that. Oh,
Good
man.
Lord. Good Lord, man. They gone. And then we got some weird handception thing going on with their emblem, but still, they got them.
They're holding the severed pieces of arm, each one is. That's interesting.
That's really interesting. I guess you could say that they gave him a hand. Anyways, moving on from that, and out of the northeastern area, it's time for us to start moving a little bit further down the lines, where we got to see today that a Ukrainian brigadier general visited the front lines near Crimea. His name is Alexander Pivnenko, and he was down here with the 12th Special Purpose Brigade of the Azov inside of their headquarters, which actually looks a lot nicer than the Russian one. Looking at what was going on, they blurred out all the maps, so we don't get to see what's really going on. We still have a pretty good idea what's going on, but here are all of the pictures. Very nice to see the generals doing their job and doing their part in the war effort. But moving on from that and down into the area of Bakhmut, we also got to see that while this battlefield is a little bit more quiet than it's normally been, we did get to see a little walk around Klishkivka, and once again showing the kind of destruction that war with Russia brings, because the Russians, you know, fight like they're some kind of savages. But here's the clip.
And also, I see in the live chat that Rats is watching on VR, and he says he feels a part of the stream. So apparently, it's like a surround sound or something. So hello there.
Oh, hello there.
Look at this wasteland. Jeez.
Yeah, Klishkivka was obliterated a while ago, and it's just remained this way for a good bit. We see him walking through and showing the kind of absolute destruction that the Russian military brings when it moves over Ukraine, really, at all. And it's always important to remember this and what this looks like, because if the Russians are allowed to advance any farther, more of Ukraine is going to look like this, and the Russians are not going to repair it anytime soon.
Нормально. Ты на повороте был? Да, вот тут. На повороте? Да, первая хата. Там же белый погреб. Да, да. Танк не работает по этому повороту? Да не, вроде. А там, посмотри, может, два рожка там где-то выпало. Вниз где-то. Ага. Да, да, да.
So we continuing to conversate with the soldier down there, trying to pick up some of his kit.
Бежал я пока тихо. Хлопцы уже пошли на выход, те, которые сидели. Те, которые сидели на выход? Да, ну, что в погребе те сидели. А их поменяли? Да не, они сами пошли сменять, чешали, я не знаю. Они на бороду выходили. На бороду выходили и пошли туда? Туда. Туда? За железку. За железку. Ну это восьмерка, да, походу? Походу, да. Потому что семерка в первую очередь пошла. Потом должны были вы, потом они. Но вы же как не пошли, значит они. Ну я так понял. Ну ладно, все, удачки, хлопцы.
We see him now on the move, but the video froze. Sorry about that, everyone. We now see him on the move again through the destroyed village of Klishkivka, about a mile away from the current front line.
Нашли? Блять, как? Ты в какую сторону ходил?
Now see he's moving into another outpost, and we see some AK-74 sitting alongside the wall.
Ну, так можно было посмотреть, ебаный путь. Сейчас скажут, блять, работа, и шо? Ебать, я, конечно, все понимаю, блядь. Мы пришли. И что ж мы слева пришли?
We now see him looking out into the destroyed village again. We now see him looking around, showing the holes from shrapnel in a gate. And that's the end of the clip, but still showing how badly Klishchiivka is. And it's been a while since Klishchiivka has been on the active battlefield. It was on the active battlefield about roughly a year ago at this point, and it still is in terrible shape. And it's, of course, what all cities that have ever been a battlefield look like, especially after the Russians are done with them. But moving on from that and down into the area of Mykolaiv Kadruha, we did get to see that the Signum unit of the 93rd, the famous fighting 93rd, ended up destroying a BMP today in the southern flank of Bakhmut. Ooh, sick. I love the intro. And we can see our FPV drone coming in on this BMP and going right through the rear door, blink, and blowing it up. And we can see another one coming in.
The Colo high-tech division here.
Oh, and they got one of those rare BMPs that the Ukrainians actually made, and then the Russians got a hold of through like some weird finagling. Oh, and it's gone. It just blew up. It's gone completely. But that's the end of that clip, and it looks like the Signum is really being a Sigma. But moving on from Bakhmut and down into the area of Avdiivka, we did get an interesting bit of clips from down here today as well. While this battlefield is now practically inactive due to the battle being over, and I'll make sure to prove that to y'all, here's the past 24 hours. And we're seeing literally no movement. I mean, the Russians moved forward like 30 feet in one area, and that was it. But beyond that, we did get to see some Russian aircraft active over Avdiivka, actually firing over the city. So here's that clip. You hear him flying off. And that's the end of that clip, but showing that the Russian Air Force is active over the Avdiivka area at the moment. We also got to see a panoramic view of Avdiivka from one of the drones that was active today from the 110th. While they've been pulled off of the line, weirdly enough, it looks like the 110th is still somewhere in the area because their drone forces are still active on the front lines. But here's the clip. There's the Avdiivka coke plant right there. You can see the slag heap right across the street. That's where the Russians were stuck for nearly 6 months of the battle, was right there near that slag heap. Of course, heavy shelling damaged most and destroyed most, if not all, of the Avdiivka coke plant. And we can see as the camera starts to view further south and into the actual city, a lot of the buildings had ended up completely collapsing due to the sheer volume of artillery fire that was levied at the city on a daily basis. That area, actually, we can actually see it on film. This area, right over here where the mouse cursor is moving, is the part where the Russians broke through and ended up pushing back the 110th Brigade after they collapsed due to attrition. And we can see them looking around, showing the interior of Avdiivka. And we see several fires. We can also see the Highway of Life right here. This is the road that was called the Highway of Life throughout the battle, right on the very edge of the city on its western side. And it's always insane, because these drones make these battlefields look minute in size. They make them look like they're nothing. But over 6 months, both the Ukrainians and the Russians fought hard over this very area, and you can see it all on this drone camera. War. War! But anyways, that's the end of that clip. Very interesting to see. But moving on from that and into our next one, we also got to see the Ukrainians hitting a supply truck today that was moving near the western side of Avdiivka. Here's the clip. Alright, Lego City music is playing, and we can see the drone coming in near the back of the supply truck. It looks like it might be a Euro 4320, but it's about to be a past tense Euro 4320. And there it is. It's gone, and will never exist again. But moving on from that clip and on into our next one in the area, we also got to see a couple of Ukrainian marksmen sitting in their positions. We don't know where this was in the Avdiivka area, but here's the clip. Some pretty nice rifles. We see them all just chilling. And that's the end of the clip, but just showing a little bit of what the marksmen are doing. What the marksman doing. He's just chilling. But moving on from that and into our next clip. Oh, we already showed the Gerasimov thing. Moving on from the Avdiivka area and the action that we saw in that area today, we're now going to be moving on down towards Novomykhailivka and Volodar, where we got to see the 72nd plastering one of those crappy made Russian MTLBs. Check it out. Here comes the drone strike on the MTLB, right into the rear door, and any second now, ooh, right inside, blowing it away. And the MTLB is roasting. And that's the end of that clip. But I gotta say, while it may be just an MTLB, it is just another MTLB destroyed. It's a very good thing. We also got to see that another Russian tank was lost in the area. From what I understand, 2 Russian tanks were lost in the area, thanks to the 71st Jaeger Brigade. Call them Jägermeister because they're rolling out the booze. But anyways, here's the clip. Schultz! Geschlägt like in die Deutschen Volk! But anyways, here we can see here the 2 Russian T-72s sitting in a field. And here comes the Ukrainian drone. It's going to take care of the first one right there. And there goes the dive right into the back of the turret, causing a fire.
They sort of slammed him.
Man, they slam dunked him, man. Ooh, okay. Well, that one's gone. That's the end of the clip. Hey, how simple. How nice. I like it. But moving on from that clip, it's now time for us to move on a little bit further down the line and towards the area of Dobropilya, because we got to see today that unfortunately a Shahed strike occurred in this area of the countryside.
Летит где-то низко. Сейчас где-то ёбнет тут. Пидорасы.
Jorn Schneider said, Enforcer, we Germans don't scream this way. And I know. I know, but it's for the prank. It's for the vine, man.
Schultz!
Schultz! Geschlägt like man. But mad respect to the Germans who are here with us tonight.
Aggression! Ooh. Oh. Suka, bliyat. Bonk. Oh, they got the little wee-woo and everything going on.
Yeah, hopefully no Ukrainians were injured or killed in that attack, but nevertheless,
goodness,
it is a pretty rough one. Because it looks like the air defense was not able to intercept that Shahed, probably because an air defense perimeter doesn't exist in this part of the countryside where the Ukrainians currently are. But moving on from that and into the area of Orikhiv, we also got to see the 44th Brigade using one of their Italian-provided FH-70s to try and destroy some Russian forces. Pretty cool. Also, Trapped Remix playing over the clip, so sadly I can't play the audio, but we can see them loading the FH-70 and firing it. It is a 155mm artillery piece, pretty similar to the M777, but I gotta say, this thing really does pack a punch. And that's the end of the clip, but once again showing the 44th doing some pretty good work. Moving on from that, we also got to hear that today, apparently, the Russian VDV units that were in the area of Novoprokopivka and were heavily involved in the Battle of Robotyne after the Ukrainians pushed through the town are apparently reorganizing and getting ready to fight again. And we got to see that apparently some of their armor has been destroyed, and it's not the VDV unit that we saw in Zaporizhia with T-90Ms. These guys are relegated down to T-55s at this point, so they're down to the bottom of the barrel kind of tanks that the Russians are able to pull out. And we can see this one's already destroyed and smoking. And we can see this next BTR-82 getting destroyed and smoking. Good googly moogly, that thing is just... But anyway, so you can see that the Russians are continuously being attacked. Their T-55s being destroyed and burned. And look at that. It missed the hatch just by a little bit, but it still made it close enough to start a fire inside of the cab. And here comes the next one, hitting that BTR-82 a second time. Oh, and hitting a crowd of running Russians. Call it a marathon, because they're going for it. And we see these guys trying to hide near a destroyed tank, but of course that's a bad idea. And that's the end of that clip, but giving us a really good look that the Russians are doing quite poorly down there in that front. But according to the British Ministry of Defense, they are also noting that the VDV unit appears to have finally reorganized and is becoming operational again. You have to remember that the last time that they were operational was in late July of last year, so it took them nearly 8 months to become combat operational again, and showing you how badly Russian units have been attritioned in prior battles, and also giving us an idea that most of the Russian units involved in the Battle of Avdiivka are probably not going to be fully combat operational for probably another 6 to 8 months, going off of the rate that it took for the 58th Combined Arms Army, which is really just made up of the VDV, how long it took them after the Battle of Robotyne to become ready for combat action again. But moving on from that news there in the south, we also got one last bit of news to tell y'all before we move on up to Kyiv. And that is from the Enerhodar nuclear power plant, or the ZNPP. Apparently, according to the sources that are there at the ZNPP, they lost communication with its last backup external power transmission line, and there's only one left. So if it goes out, the power plant could possibly go into a meltdown. There's nothing that will be able to stop that at this point. I'm not going to try and upplay that too much because we kind of got burned doing that last year when, you know, we took it at face value. So hopefully things remain, you know, of course, fairly stable at the power plant, but it does look like it's getting in a precarious situation again. But moving on from that little bit of news and on up towards Kyiv, we do have some interesting things to talk about up here. But before we do, some people have been asking where the F-16s are, and I'm wanting to make sure to get to that before we even get to the speech from Zelensky, because a lot of people have been asking that question. And from what we've been told, the F-16s are going to be delayed until summer at this point. We were told that they were going to be in Ukraine by early spring. Early spring is now here nearly, and there's still no sign of the F-16s. We're now hearing that they'll probably be there by midsummer. And a lot of people have been throwing in their opinions and their takes and their comments on why that's happening, if that's a good thing, if that's a bad thing. And Matthew, what do you get from it?
So we're being told by U.S. officials that the F-16 pilots that are Ukrainian will complete their training by early summer. And it looks like the majority of people are saying that anytime is good. Anytime the Ukrainians can get their hands on the F-16s and also get their pilots properly trained is going to be a win. It looks like 28% said that is perfect timing, and 19% said it's too late for F-16s. And I don't think any time is too late. As long as Ukraine is in the fight, then it's a good time, in my opinion. Obviously, sooner is better than later. And, you know, at this point, they've been kind of dragging this whole process out. I think the F-16s and also the training should have been completed by now. But then again, what can you ask for? It's bureaucracy, and it takes time. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, honestly, any time is good from what we've been hearing. It's not like the West isn't trying. We are certainly trying to work to get them over there. It's just that things aren't really working out behind the scenes like it was hoped that they would be working out. So really any time would be good, but hopefully it'll be sooner than even early summer. Hopefully it'll be sometime like late spring. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and it's time for us to move on into that speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky today. I'll make sure to get y'all that speech. We'll go with this one, because he put out two today. Actually, really quickly, we're going to cherry pick. Which one is better? This one is better. This one was put out today on the 21st of February, and without further ado, here is the speech for President Volodymyr Zelensky.
Дорогі українці, українки.
Wait, hang on. Is this the same address that he made yesterday? It's just in Ukrainian? Because there is no English subtitles provided for this thing. No, actually it's not. So I'm going to get you all the English subtitles for this. Stand by. Hang on, everyone. Hang tight. Hang tight. Let me go get the subtitles. And then let me go and auto-translate that into English. And there we go. And
Дорогі українці, українки.
And I'll throw that up there. And so without further ado, here is the speech.
А також усі партнери України у нашій Європі, передусім в Польщі. Зараз хочу звернутися до усіх, хто пам'ятає, що означає повний сенс слова «солідарність». Слово, яке так сильно змінило історію всієї нашої Європи до кращого. Це було і багато в чому є. Але ми бачимо і надмірну та несправедливу політизацію зараз, через яку спільні досягнення можуть почати розсипатися. Саме так розсипатися, як українське збіжжя, яке, на жаль, світ побачив на польських дорогах, грубо викинутим із машин та вагонів. Це зерно, яке з великими труднощами вирощують наші фермери, наші селяни, попри усі складнощі безжальної російської агресії. Попри обстріли, часто на тих полях, які довелось розміновувати, попри загрозу спалення ракетними і дроновими ударами елеваторів та підприємств. Ціна українського зерна для нас особлива, як і будь-якої іншої продукції, яку виробляє у цей час наша економіка. Це воєнна економіка. Підприємства, які працюють і дозволяють Україні забезпечувати фронт, а отже, і збереження нашої незалежності, нашої свободи, а отже, і вашої свободи. Україна завжди пам'ятатиме польський вибір, зроблений 24 лютого у відповідь на російське вторгнення. Це був вибір на користь спільної сили, на користь того, що ми маємо спільно вигравати битви на Дніпрі, щоб не довелось шукати способів робити нове чудо на Віслі. Мільйони поляків були та залишаються з нами. І серцем, і справою. І я вдячний їм усім. І я вдячний усім зараз, хто не мовчить і підтримує справедливе рішення заради наших спільних інтересів. І я думаю, кожен зрозуміє, що Україна не може змиритися з тим, що відбувається на кордоні між нашими державами. І тим більше із тим, що там почали з'являтись відверті пропутінські гасла. Це неправильно і антисолідарно. І, зокрема, у вчорашньому випадку з нашим зерном, яке висипали із вагону, це було ще й просто неправдиво, бо ані граму з того збіжжя не везли у Польщу на продаж, не везли на польський ринок. Зараз немає жодного погодження на експорт у Польщу зерна з України. Хоча це для українських виробників, очевидно, невигідно. Але ми дотримуємось цього. Бо відносини з Польщею для нас безумовний пріоритет національної безпеки. Наше партнерство України та Польщі – це захист національної безпеки. І нашої, і вашої. І ця історія з аграрною торгівлею тягнеться далеко не перший день, а багато місяців. Багато що сталося за цей час. Але усі бачать, що в ситуації досі значно більше політики, ніж економіки. І тільки в Москві зараз радіють. І коли наші українські водії стоять заблоковані на польських дорогах. Це говорить про те, що політикам варто активізувати справжній діалог на всіх рівнях. І результат. Україна цінує відносини з Польщею, всі аспекти наших відносин, контакти між людьми, оборонну і політичну співпрацю, яка завжди робить наші народи тільки сильніше. Взаємодію в Європі. І, звичайно, ми цінуємо наші економічні відносини, нашу взаємодію у торгівлі, і ми прагнемо все це зберегти. Україна прагне спільно та справедливо вирішити ситуацію на кордоні, абсолютно прагматично. Я хочу звернутися до польського суспільства та засвідчити українську вдячність кожному і кожній, хто розділяє політичні маніпуляції та фундаментальні питання національної безпеки. Я хочу звернутися до уряду Польщі, до пана прем'єр-міністра Туска та міністрів. Я доручив нашому уряду найближчим часом до 24 лютого бути на кордоні між нашими державами. Глава уряду України, увесь наш уряд, від логістики до аграрного сектору і, звичайно, міністр оборони України, бо ця блокада на кордоні, на жаль, додає загроз і для постачання зброї нашим хлопцям на фронт. І я прошу тебе, Дональде, пане прем'єр-міністре, теж приїхати до кордону. Анджею, пане президенте, я прошу тебе підтримати цей діалог. Це національна безпека. Ми не маємо це затягувати. Найближчі дні дають нам шанс це зробити. Я готовий бути також на кордоні разом із нашим урядом. І я хочу звернутися зараз до Єврокомісії. Треба зберегти єдність в Європі. Це фундаментальний інтерес Євросоюзу. Тому Україна звертається до Єврокомісії, щоб у цій зустрічі взяв участь представник Єврокомісії. Також заради спільних інтересів та припинення політичних маніпуляцій. Дощ Москви на наших землях, дощ непорозумінь. Не можемо ще взаємне упокажeć. Nie możemy upokarzać ani ukraińskich, ani polskich rolników. Potrzebujemy jedności, potrzebujemy rozwiązań między nami, Ukrainą a Polską і на poziomie całej Європи. Ми можемо зробити все, щоб перегорнути цю неприємну сторінку та наступною сторінкою наших відносин знов зробити виключно співпрацю та взаємну силу. Слава Україні!
And
Героям слава!
And with that, that was the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky, and a massive shout out to all the peasants across Ukraine. But with that, it is time for us to move on into the second segment of this stream, where we get to talk to all of y'all. We get to talk about literally anything and everything. We get to talk about questions. We get to talk about comments. We get to talk about concerns. We get to talk about everything that y'all want. And make sure to an exorbitantly high degree, the highest degree that the Lee Spring Army can achieve, throw in some questions. Throw in some live chats. Because we want to make sure to be able to address as many questions as we can. I know that many of the questions have been answered throughout the course of the war, because it has been going on for 2 years, but any question is a good question. Hell, you can bring up something that isn't about the war. You could just bring up a historical fun fact. Or you could bring up anything you want. You could just bring up where you live, and we could go check out where y'all live, like what city and what part of the world. That's a fun part of the stream. And I hate that, like, that hasn't happened in a while, actually, y'all. Like, I remember that we used to go from city to city during the question segment and check out where y'all lived. And nowadays, we don't really get to do that anymore. So if y'all want, make sure to throw in where you're from. And we'll make sure to go take a look at it and take a little bit of a tour on Google Maps. But with that, I hope that does let y'all know what kind of a segment we're going into, because it's going to be nothing but fun, and I love this part. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and we're jumping right into our super chat questions. And first up, we have one from Surprise It's Us, who's a longtime channel viewer. We also have one from BC Skyman and JD Mako 23, and they each put in a $20 donation. Very generous of them, and they did not leave a comment. Any of them. None of them did, actually. So thank you very much, Surprises Us, BC, and JD Macco 23 for helping to support the channel. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank the three of y'all so much, and I want to make sure that we make sure that I say y'all's names individually. Surprise, it's us. Welcome back, by the way. And I hope things have been going well for you. I've been hearing some things here and there that things haven't been the brightest and the best behind the scenes for you, but I hope that things have been getting better and better and improving. And thank you for being here tonight and supporting the channel. And BC Skyman, nothing has to be said for BC Skyman. Y'all all know how big of a legend BC Skyman really is. He is one of the greats of the channel. And I got to thank you for being here with us tonight, BC Skyman. Welcome back, and thank you for the support of the channel and helping us to keep the thing rolling. And of course, we can't go without mentioning JD Macco 23 either. JD Macco is as old of a guard as BC Skyman is. Both of them are in the old guard of the Lee Spring Army. And I think that is amazing and truly incredible that you're here tonight too, and that all three of y'all enjoy the channel and help it to keep running. It is amazing to know that people are supporting the channel, and loads of people continue to support the channel and help it to keep running, because if it wasn't for each and every one of y'all who support the channel, like you, Beast is coming, and like you, JD Mac, and like you, Surprises Us, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And I gotta thank each and every one of y'all so much for that. And of course, especially as times get tougher and super chats get less and less, we are so appreciative to each and every one of y'all who does continue to support the channel, because y'all are helping to help us to shoulder the burden of keeping this thing running and working 60 hours a week to keep the stream alive. And I thank y'all for caring about us behind the scenes so much that y'all would find it worthwhile to support. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address each and every one of y'all super chats, and we are on to the next one.
And next up, big shout out to Skilled Painter, Ammo Fund, and ASV, who each put in a $10 donation as well, and they also did not leave comments. A lot of no comment support tonight, I'm telling you, but thank you very much to all three of you once again for that support as well. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank Skilled Painter for the support. That's your third super chat in the history of the channel. I gotta thank you for that. And also, thank you for throwing in a lemon holding itself. It's holding itself. It's a lemon that is a homunculus. But nevertheless, I appreciate that, Skilled Painter, and I thank you for the support. And also, I've got to thank you, Cliff H, for supporting the channel and saying Ammo Fund. We love the Ammo Fund. Everyone loves ammo. I love ammo. And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, thank you so much for the support, ASV, and helping this channel to keep running as well. All three of y'all are channel legends and have been around for such a while. And we're great to, and we're so happy to see, just like let me make sure, Surprises Us, BC Scamming, and JD Macco 23, just like the three of them, y'all are throwing in support as well and wanting to see this channel run. I've got to be honest with y'all. I think we don't really get a lot of comments or questions anymore in super chats, and I think it's kind of because there have been so many questions and comments asked over the course of the war that everyone's kind of run out of questions to ask when throwing in super chats. People just throw in super chats now, and I've got to say, that is absolutely it's crazy when you think about it, that we've answered so many questions. We've kind of answered every single question that is under the sun. Nobody really has any questions to ask anymore. But still, I got to thank y'all so much for the support, because while there may be no questions to ask, the support is still important to the channel and helps us to keep this thing running. And I got to thank all three of y'all for throwing in support without comments, because it does make this channel possible. And if it wasn't for y'all, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running. And so with that, thank you to all three of y'all once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jay Tevis, who puts in a $10 donation and says, Brett Baer interviewed Zelensky on the front lines, and this will be a better interview than Tucker for sure. And what do you think?
And let's see here. Okay, Matthew. I actually didn't know who this guy was by name, so I had to Google him.
He's a Fox reporter on primetime. Yeah,
Matthew, but Matthew, you know, we got a certain joke about this guy. I don't know if I should say it on air or not, because, you know, it's a funny one, but I don't know if we should say it out loud. You know what I'm talking about, right? You know what this guy looks like.
Oh yeah, I think I do. I just don't know if you want to say it.
You know, I think we're going to hold that one back. I think we're going to hold that one off the air. But nevertheless, I will say, don't really know a lot about the guy. And I don't really know a lot about many reporters. I only know a few of them by name. And specifically, that would be Wolf Blitzer and Tucker Carlson. Those were really the only two that I actually knew at all. Well, not at all. Like, I just kind of knew their names. I didn't really watch their stuff because I kind of find all the mainstream news stuff to be fairly freaking lame. But beyond that,
he's usually considered one of the more neutral Fox News hosts. That's why he's put on the primetime spot. Because I think that the Fox News network is trying to put the most credible person they have in that spot, so that way people will watch. But really, though, I haven't really seen him be too biased. I guess you could say. I guess you could say he's the best reporter on Fox, in my opinion.
I'll have
or
to
anchor, more like it.
I'll have to take that for what you're saying because I don't know the guy well enough to say whether he's good or not. But one thing I will say is that it's probably going to be a better interview than Tucker Carlson because I'm going to tell you this. Some people have been saying that Tucker Carlson was an interviewing legend and people ought to follow his interviewing style. Hell no, they shouldn't, because if they do, I'm literally going to jump off a bridge if I have to watch an interview that is that boring again and just rambles on and on and on. That was such a crappy interview. He did not push for answers. He just let the guy ramble. He didn't try and contradict any misinformation. I mean, like, I'm not one for wanting to always try and act like, the reporter knows the right kind of information when going into an interview. But with the history lesson, it's like, he didn't really push hard enough for the answer. Like, yeah, you're giving me like 1,000 years of history, but regardless, whatever historical land claims you have, wouldn't you agree that the modern world doesn't work off of historical land claims anymore? Like, he never really asked that question outright because that completely throws out Putin's argument because nobody works off of that anymore. Like, a historical land claim, great, get in line with everyone else. Everyone's got a historical land claim to everything. So it's really nuts to me that people said that his interview was good at all because I thought it was trash. And so I would have to say any interview can be better than Tucker's interview. And I got to thank you so much once again for support, Jay Tevis. I hope that does address that well because I will have much higher expectations for that interview than the last one. But, always want to go in things with a neutral mindset because you never know. I could go in there with some pretty high mindset and then come out and be like, yeah, it's not that great. But still, with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you once again for support. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and next up, we have a $27 donation in Canadian from Sully Canuck. Hey! And thank you very much, Sully, for that support. He says, London, Ontario, checking in. And he's checked in officially. He says, Canadian Navy vet saying LSA, LSA, LSA. And great job, fellas. And thank you very much, Canuck.
And thank you so much, Sully Canuck, for throwing in a $28 Canadian super chat and helping this channel to keep rolling. This is the town of London, Ontario. And I gotta say, it looks a lot like London. Let's drop down in the downtown and let's see what London, Ontario looks like. Oh, it's actually not that bad. I like
looks like London, governor.
Looks a bit like London, governor. But anyways, I gotta say, really nice. Look, we got a Londoner right here. He's got his AirPods in, governor. He's not hearing the bus coming at him. But anyways,
he must be rich. He's wearing AirPods.
Oh no, he's about to get mugged. Quick, yell at him. No, it is alas, for he wears AirPods. But anyways, I gotta say, really nice place. Let's look at Harris Park. I wonder if this park looks good. Oh, it actually does look pretty good.
Pretty nice, actually.
Oh, look at that. Wow, they got cotton candy.
Cotton candy.
Man, they got candy apples. It's plenty of jokes to be made there.
Oh, man.
But
they got a hot dog cart on the right. Oh, man.
Oh, man. Dude, and they got cut fries. They got cut fries, baby.
Oh, man. But you can't beat the hot dog with the relish. Oh, man. Get back. Yuck.
Dude, all I got to say to that joke is that was such a good one that all I can say is, oh, dear.
Oh, dear.
Oh, why is my voice getting so high-pitched these days? I swear, Matthew, something has happened to my voice. Like, I almost broke my voice again, and it's almost, like, gone up an octave now. Like, they won't go down. But anyways, beyond that, this is a very nice-looking park. And look at all these flowers, Matthew. Look at all them chickens. But still, I like it. I like this place, London, Ontario. And I gotta thank you for the support, Sully Canuck, and helping this channel to keep on running. One of the Canadian Navy vets of the channel. And that's actually really cool. Not a lot of people serve in the Canadian Navy. It's somewhat small. You know what's ironic about that, though, is that while the Canadian Navy nowadays isn't one of the biggest in the world, back in World War II, I think it was like the 4th largest one in the world, which is insane. Let me go pull that up, because I need to make sure I'm saying that correctly. Was the Canadian Navy the 4th largest in World War II? Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, the Royal Canadian Navy ended the war being the 3rd largest navy in the world at the time. Which is insane. You know, when you really think about that, when you really put that into perspective, Canada back then didn't even have as big a population as they have now. It was nowhere close. And somehow they had the 3rd largest navy. I don't know who they were coming in behind. It was obviously the United States and probably the British themselves. But that is nuts that a country like Canada ended up with the 3rd largest navy in World War II. That is really wild. But nowadays, it's a lot harder to be in the Canadian Navy because the Canadian Navy has been drastically downsized for good reason. But beyond that, really cool to know that you're one of those Canadian Navy veterans and also a part of the Lee Spring Navy as well. Thank you so much for appreciating the job we do on this channel, Sully Canuck. And I got to thank you for always being one of our amazing viewers who is here every night, appreciating it, because that's what makes it all worthwhile, is knowing that we're able to help out in Ukraine through the fundraisers we run on Sundays, and folks like you find this channel to be worthwhile. It's really cool. And I don't mean to, just ramble on and on about how cool everyone is here in the Lee Spring Army, because I say that a lot. But it is truly cool to know that people with amazing backstories like yours, Sully Canuck, find this channel to be worth its salt. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And next up, we have the first ever super chat from Jenna Hoff, who throws in a very generous $40 donation.
Hey!
Massive support. And thank you very much, Jenna, for your first ever support. And she says, is there a way to determine where the Russians are getting the Starlink connection from? And also, will there be an attractive feminine style t-shirt for the gals in the group? And thanks for the great content.
Jana, we're of course going to have amazing female t-shirts, or feminine t-shirts as you call them, in our merch store. We gotta have it because we gotta have them. We gotta make them at least Spring Army women look attractive. But beyond that, I will say yes.
What you mean by that?
Man, I'm just following what the super chat says, man. I'm just saying they're gonna be looking good. Hey, who in the world does not look good in Lee Spring Army merch? Nobody. I mean, everybody.
Man,
looks
that's like
good.
adding a tuner sticker to the side of a car. That's like plus 10 horsepower automatically.
Yeah, exactly. It's like putting Adidas stripes on your car, plus 10 speed in the Slavic world. But beyond that, we are going to be having some nice women's t-shirts on the merch store. We will. Because, of course, that would be really weird. I'm not going to lie. That would be bizarre if we only had, men's t-shirts. And then all the women in the Lee Spring Army, which I think 11% of the Lee Spring Army is made up of women, they're just left high and dry with no shirts. So I will say yes, we will have those shirts. I will probably order, because we do have some data to work off of on the old merch store on how many female shirts were bought. We're probably going to be doing some number crunching and figuring out how much physical inventory we should have of female shirts versus male shirts, but we certainly will have some. No doubt about that. Also, sadly, we don't know where the Russians are really getting the Starlink connection from. I'm assuming that they may be possibly trying to disguise the Starlink systems as Ukrainian ones and tap into the Ukrainian Starlink connections, maybe. That's what I'm thinking might be possible, because they are very close to the front, and maybe in that area they found out that Starlink actually kind of overlaps the front line and they can use it. Maybe that's how they're using it. Or it may be that they've actually been allowed into Starlink, and it's just that the Starlink company isn't saying that officially. It's just that they are, they're not admitting it, and they're letting them on. Another thing that they could be doing is they could just be trying to bypass the system altogether and just find a way to hack through it, although I feel like that would be pretty difficult to do. As for the Starlink systems that they're getting, we have no idea how that many Starlinks are making it into Russia, because China isn't allowed to buy them, so we know they're not being shipped in from China. So there's some way that they're buying Starlinks here in a Western country and then moving them into Russia and then sending them to the soldiers in Ukraine. That's got to be actually pretty in-depth process to get that done in such a number, but we don't really know how they're doing that. It kind of is surprising everyone at this point how it's working. But with that, I hope that kind of gives an idea of maybe some of the possible options that they have on trying to get the Starlinks in and get them operational. But beyond that, we don't really know a clear answer at this point. I'm sure that someone, the US CIA or, maybe MI6 or the British Ministry of Defense or the US Department of Defense or Congress itself here in America, because it seems like they're starting to ask that question, are going to be trying to get down to the bottom of how that's happening and why they're working for the Russians. But at the moment, we don't really have a perfectly picture clear answer yet. But still, thank you so much, Jana, for enjoying the content. We are always more than happy to run this every single night. It is my passion. It is what I always wanted to do. It's what I love to do. And it's absolutely incredible to know that everyone in Lee Spring Army really does enjoy what Matthew and me do, because it's crazy to me. It really is. I never believed in any time in my life that I end up doing what I pretty much ramble about as a full-time job. That is insane to me. It's absolutely crazy. I can't fathom it still. But folks like you, Jana, make it possible. And I gotta thank you personally once again so much for enjoying it and finding this channel to be worthwhile. And so thank you once again. And we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat is going to go to Straight Edge Soldier, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, good sir, for that support. He says, "Fly, Russia wins." Marmot, hello there.
Oh, hello.
Would you like an FPV drone?
All right, hang on. Hold up. Wait a minute. Oh, hello there. Would you like an FPV drone? Hey, it's Marmot time, baby. And we love the Marmot.
Hello there, Governor. Would you like a plum? Would you like one of these explosive plums? I mean, could you have a little plum? I mean, I'm spitting blood. You have to take my word for it.
It's tuberculosis.
It's terminal.
Dude, when you're in the international terminal at the airport, it's terminal, Governor. Oh, man. I'm going to buy Starlink. Use it on the front lines. What a loser. What a freaking loser, mate. Why don't you make your own system?
Take your Starlink and shove it up your ass.
Dude, with that kind of a mouth, you know that thing's actually going, me and my beautiful wife, Camilla.
Oh, man.
Shove it rightly up your ass. But anyways, beyond this, I thank you so much for the support. And of course, enjoying the Marmot. And the Marmot, it approves of FPV drones. The Marmot's gotta approve of FPV drones, alright? Because this thing is literally first person. Well, actually, it's third person in the painting. But it's looking at us in this giant, freaky, weird eyeball with a glint in it. In first person. It is for first person drones. Just clearly for that reason. But I also gotta say, Matthew, good googly moogly, that thing is just but anyways,
man.
Thank you so much.
that Marmot is thick.
Man, that what the hell is this Marmot working at a normal job? A bakery? Because it's got all that cake up there. But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again for the support. Helping this channel to keep on running. Straight Edge Soldier. Why in the world am I slurring my speech so badly tonight? It's like I'm starting to have some issues talking. But beyond that, still, thank you so much for the support, Straight Edge Soldier, and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you who make this possible. And thank you once again for throwing in a wonderful, incredible super chat and making fun of the fly and the Marmot. It's like Toad and Frog together again. And so with that, thank you once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Gene, or I think it's Gene O'Reilly. Hopefully it's not John O'Reilly. I think it's Gene O'Reilly, who puts in a $20 donation, and huge thanks for that support. While I take out a bot in the midst of reading this fine super chat. They said, great job, and you both... Oh, what?
What? No, keep reading. Oh, God.
Gene said, great job. You both amaze me. Peas and carrots.
They goes together like peas and carrots. But still, thank you so much, Gene O'Reilly, sorry, not John, it's Gene O'Reilly, for the support. And also, thank you for saying that we both amaze you. We get along so well on stream and off stream. And I gotta say that it is incredible to know that folks like you appreciate that, because there ain't nothing better than having your brother as the co-host on your own show. It is great.
Hell, it sure beats having some mutinous bastards helping you out. It sure beats that, I'm telling you, bruv.
It sure beats having schism after schism, because people having some minor moderator powers goes to their heads and then they act like they're the authority and they're somehow going to single-handedly tear the channel down. It's way better than that. And on top of that, we live in the same house. That is absolutely great. And some people out there, Gene, they actually do not like that we're brothers. They're jealous that we actually have family. Because some people out there, they don't have family. And as that mom would say, if you do have family, call you family. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again for just admiring that we get along well, because it is truly a feat and a miracle, because a lot of family members don't get along that well from what I've seen out there in the real world. And it's great to know that we do. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And it is amazing to see you, Gene O'Reilly, in super chatting and supporting the channel tonight. And of course, helping the Lee Spring Army to keep the flame alive. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a super chat from Wubba, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Wubba, for that support. Always Wubba. And they said, been away for a while. Did I miss anything? And I hope the coffee fund hasn't run out yet.
Oh, Wubba, you've been away for a while, but you didn't miss nothing, Governor. You didn't miss nothing. If Divka fell, a little sad, but, 50,000 Russians died for it, so, it's not really a good exchange. But beyond that, some other things happened. Russian Air Force getting blasted, more Russian ships getting absolutely plastered. We got to see that Navalny died. Let's see, what else happened? Let's see, a whole bunch of sabotage attacks in Russia, blowing up major chemical plants and oil plants and rocket missile plants for ICBMs. We also got to see a couple of other interesting things. Some European countries coming together to support Ukraine, Poland and Ukraine getting in a pissing contest, all kinds of interesting stuff. I mean, it's literally been a pretty wild time when you really look back at it all and really think about it. But nevertheless, he didn't miss that much, because really it's a normal day in the life in the Ukraine war, you know what I mean? But beyond that, thank you for asking about the coffee fund. Coffee fund is running a little low. It takes a lot of coffee to run this channel. But nevertheless, your $20 super chat, Wubba, is helping that coffee fund to chop up, Governor, and keep on rolling. If it wasn't for folks like you who supported that coffee fund, Wubba, where would we be? We would be up creek without our Wubba. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep running, as Matthew laughs at that very good joke. Very corny good joke. But still, thank you once again, Wubba. I hope that does address that well. And remember, always keep a Wubba on you. But with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Halligan, 218, who says, how about some Enforcer bobbleheads or a bot swatter fly swatter, and great stream as usual. And that would actually be a legendary piece of stuff. I'm not sure if you can get custom branded fly swatters, though. I'm not sure if anyone's ever done that for a promotional item, but we could be the first to do it. In fact, I could print them on there myself if I have to. I don't know how I'll do that. Maybe get a Sharpie out and draw on it or something like that. But that would be pretty neat, because actually I've never really thought about that. That's actually pretty clever. But Enforcer, what say you?
So something that someone brought up a little bit earlier about the figurine is that we can actually, hypothetically, make a Funko Pop. You know what a Funko Pop is, brother?
I don't.
Alright, so Funko Pop is this little thing right here. Let's see here. Let me take you to the Funko Pop store.
Oh, it's a vinyl figure.
It's the vinyl figures. And we could try and see if they make an Enforcer Funko. I think that'd be kind of neat. I've never had a Funko, but I know everyone I know has a Funko Pop of some kind. So we could possibly try and look into making this a reality. But I don't know. It might be kind of difficult, because it looks like they kind of teamed up with some of the biggest brands out there, like Five Nights at Freddy's, which, has a cult following. And while we have a cult, we don't have a big one. So I don't know if they make a Funko Pop of us. But apparently you can pop yourself. That sounds bad.
Hey.
Dude, that's going to be the new insult when you get pissed off at someone. You're just going to say, pop yourself. But anyways,
Damn.
Oh my lord. No, I gotta admit, I think they need to do a little bit of rebranding on this one. Maybe not actually saying funk yourself sounds even worse. So I think pop yourself was the best they could do. But nevertheless, there is a possibility we could try and do something like this. Maybe not through Funko Pop. Maybe we could make our own kind of a figurine of sort. Because I think that would be really cool. No doubt about that, Halligan. An Enforcer bobblehead would be really neat. But let's see, a fly swatter. We could try. I don't know of anyone who makes, like Matthew said, customized fly swatters, but we could certainly give it a shot. Honestly, what we might do is we might run polls on the Patreon, because, and I have to say so sorry, I have to say this very sorry to everyone on Patreon. Thank y'all for bearing with us in continuing to be on Patreon while nothing's being uploaded there, because we're still trying to figure out how that's going to work. To be honest, I don't really, because the Patreon's kind of my thing that I kind of look over and manage. I don't really know what we are going to put on Patreon, because, you know, we can't put like day in the life of Enforcer stuff on there, because if we put something that's fairly recent, psycho stalkers are going to track down where we are, and so we can't really do that. There isn't really a lot of behind the scenes stuff, because the behind the scenes stuff is done literally right before something goes live. There's not really a lot of like massive links of pre-production, because it's a daily thing, so there's not really a lot to show in that regard, or where we would be able to have time to post stuff on there. And then gun review stuff, we aren't making gun review videos at the moment, so it'd be really weird to make photo shoots for guns that we aren't reviewing yet. So we're kind of at an impasse as to what we're really going to be putting onto the Patreon at this point. We're still trying to figure that out, and I think there might be a possibility that we do put some stuff, behind the scenes stuff, on there in the future, because we might be going back to making some rare, long-length documentary kind of videos that are high quality, and we could show y'all some behind-the-scenes stuff with that. We are also going to be using the Patreon in the future, I am specifically, to try and poll and figure out what merch item would be the most popular amongst the Lee Spring Army, and Patreon would probably be a good place to do that, so we'll probably start to run those polls through there. So, with that, I hope that does address that well, Halligan 218, because I see a lot of people are really excited about the merch store, and I am too. I cannot wait to get the thing up and running. I will say this though, we don't know how much stuff is going to be on the merch store when LSA Day comes around. I know that I'm going to be trying to get flags on there, and we're probably going to have a limited number of those only, maybe like, you know, maybe less than 40 of them, maybe 50 of them, and I'm going to make sure that they're special, instead of, and by the way, y'all, it is confirmed now that there will be an eagle on the flag, of some kind. It's just that we have to go through some final stylizing. Maybe the first 50 flags that we sell are going to be really limited edition. Instead of the eagle being white, it's going to be gold. But we're going to do something really special for the opening of the merch store, and then we're going to introduce more stuff as it goes. Because unlike the last one, there's going to be a lot logistically involved with running this one, because we're actually going to be running it from here in our house. We're going to be just buying the inventory and putting it in here instead of having a third party manage all of it. So it's going to be a little bit more involved, but it's...
You know what would be cool is if you get those flags, like really premium quality flags of that design that we're working on in the background, along with the viewer, and then you get like a gold Sharpie, and we can both sign like the corner of it.
Oh, that would be sick. You know, we can do that once we have physical inventory. We can actually do limited edition stuff where we sign it with like a gold Sharpie or something.
That would be super cool. And we could, I don't know if we do it like as like a giveaway, or maybe, you know, maybe sell those off and like donate a portion of those particular flags with the signatures on it to charity, because I'm sure we could like maybe fetch a higher price and put that toward charity. That could be a good idea.
Yeah, we could, and also we could do other things. We could try all kinds of things. Really, with us running our own merch store and not having a third party do it, the options are actually limitless on what we can put on the store, what y'all can get, what y'all can ask for. I mean, you know, it really is limitless. I saw Richard Philpott say wood furniture for ARs. Yeah, I don't know if we could do that, but I mean, we could look into it, because I honestly like wood furniture on ARs. I think it's cool. But we'll see. That might be a little bit out there, but we'll see. But still, with that, I hope that does. Also, by the way, there is a running gag thing in the background that I have with someone I know. I don't know if we're ever going to try and introduce it, because it's literally like a gag, kind of a joke thing about a merch idea. But I might look into making that a reality in the future, but I gotta kind of like really think that over, because it's a joke. Like, it's literally a joke through and through, and I don't know if the joke would even translate over onto the channel. But with that, I hope that does address that well. Halligan, I thank you once again for support. I think we beat your super chat into the ground, but thank you once again for throwing it in because you had a great question, and also thank you for saying it's a great stream as usual. If it means something coming from anyone, it means something coming from you, Halligan, because you've been watching the stream for 730 days nearly at this point. So I think you would know that the streams are good because you've been around long enough to really witness quality, or good quality and bad quality, with the streams. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Michael Harper, who throws in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Michael, for that support as well. He says, I'm from Tasmania, and I've been following the page since the start of the war, and keep up the great work. And P.S., my 1988 Toyota Hilux has leaf springs, so up the LSA.
Lucky!
And I'm telling you what, Michael, you have a cool truck, and I wish they sold those in the USA, because I really want a Hilux. Those things are indestructible, and you've had yours since 1988, or either you bought it from 1988, and that is still running to this day. So that's a testament to how strong those trucks are. So very cool indeed. And Enforcer, what say you?
I'm filled with envy whenever I hear anyone owns a Toyota Hilux. Like, it is the truck of trucks. It's the truck of legends. I mean, it really is. It's the best truck out there, and I wish that we could have one. But of course, the stupid laws in the United States, and I'm sorry, y'all, I am getting a little bit political here, but the stupid laws about pickup trucks here in the United States that has morphed them into being utilitarian vehicles with a flatbed trunk into damn near tanks, it just annoys me, because the modern trucks are just too big. I mean, like, there was a time where they kind of hit like this nice little medium in between being big and still being like a utilitarian pickup truck, but nowadays the things are tanks, and they're not even tanks for a good reason. They're just tanks to try and meet the laws that require a certain dimension, size, and everything else of pickup trucks in the US these days. The Hilux is perfect. It's like the perfect size. It's got the perfect kind of power. It's indestructible. I mean, it's a great little pickup truck. I think it's wonderful. And I gotta say, it is cool to know that it has leaf springs. Of course, living up to the Leaf Spring Army name, and once again proving that I was completely wrong. But also, thank you so much for being from the cool little island of Tasmania, just off the southern coast of Australia. It's a really cool place. I think it's some place that I'd like to go in the future. And let's just drop down, Matthew, on this one random street here near Bothwell. And dude, this does not look like what I imagined it to look like. This actually looks a lot like North England.
Yeah, it looks pretty close to it. And also, by the way, I was looking real quick because I saw someone bring up the idea of the custom fly swatter again. And I had no idea this was even an industry. They have a whole market for custom fly swatters, like from different people all over the place. I've never even known this was a thing, but I guess we actually could do that after all.
Well, if we can do it, we're going to do it, Dagnabbit. That would be cool. Man, imagine that. Imagine making custom fly swatters, and it says bot swatter on it or something like that. That would be so cool. But
that'd be pretty sick.
That would be sick. Dude, there is so much crap. You know what? Let me see. Custom plushies. Let's see here. So, you can actually... Okay, so... that one's more for, kids. We're not looking for that. We're looking for, industrial, customized plushies. So, let me see if I can find one. And... looks like I would be able to find a way to make that possible, but it's going to take a little bit more looking and research on that end. But still, with that, I hope that does address that quite well, because we're going to be looking into doing that and making it entirely possible. But, we'll have to see. We'll have to wait and see. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support and bringing that up. And also, really cool to know that you're from Tasmania. I actually didn't expect that when we dropped down on the countryside there, it was going to look like northern England. That actually blew me away. But what about over here? Because it looks a lot more forested on this side. Okay, this is not England. This looks like what I would expect Tasmania to look like. It's really dry. It's really, really dry looking. It's also really cool.
It's dry.
Yeah, it's dry. It's dry, Governor. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support and throwing in some support to this channel and helping us to keep this thing running, because it's folks like you who make it possible with your Hilux and with your wonderful island of Tasmania. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and maybe one day we'll get to go to Tasmania. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Lord Lathos, who puts in a $12 donation and says, "Greetings and challenge accepted. New Plymouth, Idaho, and I was an Army combat medic."
And really cool. That's really cool to hear that you're an Army combat medic. And let's go check out New Plymouth in Idaho. So let's go over here. Oh, whack. Look at that. They built it in a semicircle. That is a really cool town design. Where is this in Idaho? This is way over on the western side, almost in Oregon. And there's Ontario. Look, there's, oh my lord, Matthew, there's Ontario, Oregon. It's like London, Ontario, but opposite. But beyond that, let's go down here into Plymouth. And let's check this place out. Let's go check out Main Street. Wow, this is really clean.
It is clean. Like it's actually no dirt or trash anywhere.
Man, wow. There's some empty shop fronts, but that's kind of like in every small town these days, so you really can't knock that. But beyond that, really nice place. Like, you even have the club. And you even have Waldo. We found Waldo. He's in freaking New Plymouth. He's selling buildings. But we got auto parts. We got Laundry King. What else do we have in here? We got Pilgrim Market. We got let's see here. That looks like an American Legion office. Garbanzo's Pizza. Man, they got everything here. They really do. Everything that a citizen needs to thrive, they have it in New Plymouth. And I got to thank you for the support and accepting the challenge and also helping this channel to keep running. And it's really, well, you know what? We have to go look at one more place, though, Matthew. We have to look at the back streets. So let's check it out. Oh, my lord. This is from 2007. So let's back up.
Now, the back streets are looking rough.
The back streets were looking rough in 2007. Let's see what they look like now. Okay, so they look like they might be getting a little bit rough, but not that bad. I mean, there's a lot of Alabama towns that look like this, so I can't really, I can't trash on it because Alabama is like our base. So if it's better than Alabama, or if it's equal to Alabama, it's good. If it's worse than Alabama, get the hell out of there. So this isn't that bad. I like it. And I also like this little lawn here. That looks really nice and well kept, but still, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, Lord Lathos, thank you for being another one of our Army veterans in here. Really cool to know, and it's great to know that you're also a part of the Lee Spring Army. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next super chat we have is going to go to Herp Derp NV, who throws in a $10 donation and says, "Long overdue hood request for the OG hood, Compton, California."
Oh.
You can almost hear the trap music through the screen on Google Street View.
Dang. That is suburban, like, that is suburban hell. Like, I'm going to be honest with y'all, I'm not a big fan of suburbs. I'm a big fan of rural areas and urban areas. This is like, yeah, yikes. That is tough. I got to be honest, I cannot stand that. Like, I feel like if you're in a city, it ought to be a city. Suburbs are like the hell in between the rural areas and the urban areas. And you can see a lot of American cities just turned into that. It is suburb hell forever. It's like that in every city. It's like that here in Birmingham. And I got a thing against it. I got a bone to pick with it. And also, Matthew, on his little trip, can tell you that he's got a bone to pick with it as well, because you can drive for 40 minutes and still be in the suburbs. It's nuts. But anyways,
I actually loved it.
You loved it?
Yeah, I thought it was actually very nice. I went to Dallas, by the way. That's where I went.
Now explain to me, why did you like it?
Well, I thought Dallas was nice. It was just they taxed you to death out there. Like, you drive on the tollway and they're charging like $2 every time you jump on it. It's like, how can you afford that?
Well, I mean, you got a little bit of a point. But, beyond that, I've just got to be honest, I don't like suburbs. Either I want to live in the country or I want to live like in where it feels like a city. Like, when I mean city, I mean like pre-car America city. That's what I think. But also another thing I gotta say is that Compton can't be that bad off because they got an airport. Like, I've never seen a true proper hood have a whole airport for it. Like, that adds a new level of intrigue here to Compton. And look at this. They actually got a lot of privately owned planes here too, in the middle of Compton. And they all don't look that bad. Oh, wait, we got some like military aircraft over here. This might be a little museum. But beyond, let's get down into Compton. We've got to see what Compton's about. Let's go to downtown Compton, right here. Yeah, anyone who said they grew up on the streets of Compton, they got nothing on anyone who grew up on any street in Alabama. This looks like the nice side of Birmingham. I'm not going to lie. Like, this is not bad at all.
These are probably multi-million-dollar homes right here.
Yeah, man, you pull up Zillow, pull up Zillow, and give me a price estimate to live in Compton at this point, because this does not look cheap, and this looks way too nice to be a proper hood. Like, this is not a hood, and I'll tell you all this. A lot of people don't really believe this because Matthew and me talk and act a certain way, but where we grew up as kids, we were in the hood, and it was
rougher looking than this.
It was far rougher looking than this, and I grew up thinking that was kind of normal. I kind of didn't know that was not normal until way later on, like in my mid to late teens, and I was like, oh wow, like this is not what people consider normal. A lot of people consider this the hood. So, you know, that's something that's kind of interesting. This is actually really nice looking. Like, it blows me away. And I gotta tell you this, living in Alabama is a blessing, because some parts of Alabama are so bad off that literally anywhere looks, oh, well, now the sky has gotten a little bit dim and it doesn't look as good, but still beyond that, when you live in Alabama, anywhere looks not that bad. I mean, this isn't bad at all. And a lot of people are saying don't go at night. I wouldn't go anywhere at night, like, unless you're packing. And I promise you, I'm always packing that heat, but still beyond that, this isn't that bad of a hood. Like, I'm not gonna lie, Herb Derb. And I can't hear trap music or nothing. This looks like it'd be yuppie music coming out of a lot of these houses. I'm not gonna lie. But Matthew, have you been on Zillow and found me a price estimate for this place?
I haven't, but let's see. Average price of home in Compton, CA. The average price is $650,000, and it's trending up 7% every year.
Yeah, you're not living in the hood with those kinds of prices, man. That's the suburbs right there. You're living in the middle class suburbs right there. But with that, I hope that does address that pretty well, at least in my opinion. But Herb Derb, I gotta say, I think Compton has moved out of hood status and has moved into suburb status. But still, thank you so much once again for support and allowing us to have a hood review running on empty. But with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to George A., who throws in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, George, for that support. He says, was it Yosemite Sam? Yosemite Sam, that is. Yosemite Sam, Yosemite. He says, antagonist of the Taz Devil.
I think it was. I think Yosemite Sam was like the antagonist of everyone in the Looney Tunes, because Bugs Bunny didn't like him. I don't even think Elmer Fudd liked him. He was like a gun character too. Now they both don't have guns, and so what's funny about that, if y'all haven't been keeping up to date with the Looney Tunes like world, is that they replaced Elmer Fudd's gun with a scythe, because apparently that's less violent. It's like, I don't know. I feel like getting shot is a lot less violent than getting dismembered, like by a scythe. But apparently they think different. Beyond that, however, I would say that he was the antagonist of the the Tasmanian Devil. I don't know if I can even do a Yosemite Sam voice. Can you, Matthew?
I say, what's for breakfast? I say.
That's Foghorn Leghorn. that's the chicken, man.
Wait a minute, what?
Yosemite Sam was the little guy with like the red hair and the bandit mask who would go, "No, get back here, rabbit!"
Oh yeah, I was doing the rooster. You're talking about the guy who whips out the revolvers and talks about. I don't even know what he said. What did he even speak?
I'm gonna blow you to smithereens or something like that. I can't do his voice though. But it was something like that.
Let me pull it up now because I'm curious. I can't remember. I thought it was the rooster the whole time.
She did a Foghorn Leghorn for a Yosemite Sam. But beyond that, I hope we were able to answer the question, George A. He was the antagonist to the Tasmanian Devil, at least on a few occasions. But nevertheless, thank you for the support. We're going to be waiting for Matthew to refresh himself on what Yosemite Sam is. And
if any of you little wee fellas want to get shot up, I can pull out a revolver.
That was better than mine. I'm not gonna lie, that was better than mine. But still, thank you for the support, George 8. I hope that does address that well. And it's amateur hour here on the Enforcer. We're all doing terrible impressions of Yosemite Sam, or Yosemite Sam. But with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you once again.
I say whoa. I say whoa, varmint. Whoa.
Whoa! That was not Yosemite Sam, man. That was someone getting murdered in the woods. But anyways,
again, Matt.
dude, my laugh went from being like an actual laugh when we first started doing this to now it sounds like a little Maxim machine gun. I go, it's like I'm mowing down Krauts in No Man's Land with that laugh right there. But anyways, with that,
I did that little whoa varmint little number right there, and all of a sudden I saw the watcher number go down like 100, like in one fell swoop in one go. Let me move on from that.
Oh, yeah, we need to move on. But anyways, thank you for the support, helping the channel to keep running. We're always greatly appreciative. And with that, we're on to the next one.
This one goes to Hoodoo, Texas, who throws in a $10 donation and says, curious if the removal of Gen Z might have something to do with the probability of A eventually falling. Maybe so it might not be on his watch in case he makes a comeback.
Really quickly, hang on, let me go grab that super chat so that way I can read it. Hang on. Whose was that again, Matthew?
Hoodoo, Texas's.
Let's see.
You want me to read it again?
I'm reading it. I'm not getting it. I don't know what the A is supposed to be standing in for.
Let's see. Avdiivka?
Removal of Gen, but that doesn't really make a lot of sense though, because Gen Z is our generation.
That's a removal of General Zaluzhny.
Oh, okay, all right. Now I get it. I'm so sorry, Hoodoo Texas. I didn't get it. And also, the Observer only said cringe in the live chat. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Observer. I'm very sorry. But beyond that, the removal of General Zaluzhny, I don't think the removal of General Zaluzhny had to do with the fall of Avdiivka. I actually think at this point that General Zaluzhny being removed was for a reason, because he's kind of responsible for the fall of Avdiivka, because right before Avdiivka fell, Zelensky said, we're removing him because we need to make sure that there are proper troop rotations, among other things, that need to happen in the Ukrainian army. And then just a week and a half later, Avdiivka falls because the 110th was never properly rotated out of action to refresh and reinforce before they were put back into the fight. And it looks like General Zaluzhny may have actually been the reason why the Battle of Avdiivka went the way it did, because no units were properly rotated. And that's also one of the main reasons why he was dismissed, according to the public account. And so I think it might be that Sir Alexander Syrskyi actually has a good way of thinking, at least if he's starting to focus less so on the actual doctrine of the Ukrainians fighting on the front, but more so on the practice of everything behind the lines, like proper rotations, logistics, stuff like that. The Ukrainian army may actually do a lot better going on into the future. So I'm actually going to have to go back and say I was wrong on saying that removing Zaluzhny was a bad idea, because now looking back at it, it looks like it may have actually been a fairly good idea, now seeing what his kind of a practice led to, which was the fall of Avdiivka. But with that, hope that does address that well. And thank you once again for support, Hoodoo Texas, and helping this channel to keep running. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Made in Canada 182, who puts in a 10 and says, please, for the love of all things marmot, can the plushie be made with 2 plums? I'll pre-order one right now.
And of course, Made in Canada 182, we're going to try and fit some plums in. I wonder if we could sell it as a set, Matthew. Like, make like some plushy plums, and then the marmot, and you sell it as like a set where the plums are actually detached from the actual marmot plushie. I would want to do that. Like, that would be cool.
That is pretty cool. That's a good idea.
That is a great idea. And you know what, Made in Canada 182? You're a genius. You're an absolute genius. You just both gave us that idea. We're going to make sure that plums are included in the set. It's going to be like a whole playtime
And we're going to
set.
make it in Canada, too.
What? Wait a minute, what? Do you know the production
in honor
costs?
of Made in Canada.
Oh, true. You know what? That's a true idea. I was actually going to say we were going to have them made in China. I'm just kidding. We would never do that. They would be made somewhere.
No.
They would be made somewhere in the depths of Mexico, and I make sure that the cartel stamps off on them. But anyways, with that, I thank you once again for support, Made in Canada 182. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Mr. Lunchtime, who throws in 10 of his lunch money. He says, "Great work, guys, and take a question from the chat, and stay toasty, my friends. Don't stay cold, stay toasty."
And welcome back, Mr. Lunchtime. A real return of a real legend. Mr. Lunchtime was one of the first jokes on this channel, and I gotta say that I'm gonna be the last joke on this channel, but nevertheless, thank you so much once again for the support, Mr. Lunchtime. Thank you for enjoying the work we're doing, and thank you for sponsoring a live chat. We are going to stay toasty, and your support is helping us to stay toasty. And so with that, thank you once again, and let's get that live chat.
And this question goes to Guamson Cruz, who says, "Hey, Matt, what is your opinion of direct U.S. intervention of the Ukraine war? For example, the U.S. bombing the hell out of the Russian army." And in my opinion on that, if you're asking me directly, I would say that we should really hold off on that. Because right now, we can simply give Ukraine the weapons they need to fight their war, and I think they'll get the job done satisfactorily, and they'll push the Russians out. To get the U.S. involved in that could potentially devolve the world into absolute chaos and start a world war, which would be much, much worse than what's happening between Russia and Ukraine right now. So, in my opinion, it should be an option of last resort to actually put U.S. Troops on the ground. And basically, honestly, to be perfectly truthful with everyone, unless Russia attacks a NATO country, I don't really ever see putting troops on the ground in Ukraine unless something like that were to occur, because that would lead to very serious consequences, because that could lead to literally everyone getting involved, including China. But, Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to kind of agree. It's not really the fact that China would get involved. It's the fact that having a direct war in between the Russian Federation and the United States specifically would lead to a nuclear holocaust. That is really the end result, because a lot of people are always going to go, oh, the nuke threat, oh, the nuke threat. But the thing is that we're going to steamroll the Russians probably so quickly, and it's going to be such a one-sided fight that they will start to use tactical nuclear weapons on U.S. forces that are advancing through Russia. We're going to start using tactical nuclear weapons in response to that on Russian forces inside of Russia, and then by the time that both armies are getting thoroughly decimated and the U.S. is still probably advancing forward, then the Russians are going to launch their intercontinentals at the United States and all of the other countries in NATO, and then we're going to respond, and then it's going to be a nuclear holocaust. So going off of that, I would think that that's not really a great idea, because while this war is certainly a very important one for major Western and Russian strategic interests, depending on the outcome, it is not worth immediately throwing the world into a nuclear holocaust for just for that reason. That's why we've stayed out of the war and have only supported Ukraine through material means for 2 years. And I think that's actually the best way we can keep things going. I just think that the material support should greatly increase. And so with that, hope that does address that well. Thank you once again for sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Epic Trains Canada, who throws in a 10 as well. It says, "You should check it out in Gimli, Manitoba. And they have an annual Icelandic festival every year. And it's also the site of the Gimli glider incident. Igor and Slav Ukraine."
Hey, and Matthew, this is where the Gimli glider happened. You know, where the Air Canada plane lost, like, both of its engines or something like that, and they glided for like 30 miles, and they landed out here at the drag strip?
Yeah, remember they almost like wrecked those 2 kids on those bikes. You remember that?
Yeah, they put that into the air disasters episode where they almost murked the little kids on the bikes. But beyond that, I would say, what is this? Diageo Canada Incorporated. And then the cemetery. Apparently this is where this is the killing factory in Gimli. But beyond that, let's check out, wow, there's really a lot of death stuff, like the funeral home, the cemetery, you know, it's kind of, but let's check it out. Let's take a look at downtown Gimli. Oh, wow. It's actually really nice. I don't, why in the world am I so blown away that everything is nice around the world? It's pretty impressive stuff. And I gotta say, it is absolutely beautiful. But really cool. And I gotta say, thank you so much for sharing that. And also, an Icelandic festival held in the middle of Canada. Sounds pretty Canadian, but still, really cool nevertheless. Maybe one day we'll get to go there. Y'all make me want to travel really a lot. But still, Thank you so much for the support. Thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And Igor and Slava Ukraini. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep rolling Epic Trains Canada and being a legend. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And on next, big shout out to Matt Cheer, Junebug72, and also Thomas Dukes. They each put in a $5 super chat without comments. But thank you all three very much for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you to all three of y'all as well. You did throw in comments, but each a little bit of support helps this channel to keep on running, and we're greatly appreciative that y'all enjoy the channel enough to support us and help us to keep this thing rolling. And so thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Carl, who puts in a 5 and says, great show, guys, and I hope you're both doing well.
And thank you so much, Carl, and thank you for the support. And of course, we're doing well. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep running. Because folks like you, Carl, make it possible. And of course, we're doing great. Better than ever before. And especially since dropping out of law school, things have been on the up and up mentally. So with that, thank you so much once again. Hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Oceanic83, who puts in a 5 and says, check out where I grew up in Brighton, Massachusetts.
Brighton, Massachusetts. There's a Brighton in England. And let's go check out the one in Massachusetts. Brighton in Boston, in Massachusetts. So, this is a little bit farther back from downtown Boston. And let's see. I think Lexington and Concord is like out here somewhere. Way off on like the very edge of Boston. Or may even be further in. But beyond that, let's check out this little place here. We're going to go to Oak Square. Right here. I'm not gonna lie, man. I feel like we are in like one of the worst places because everywhere looks really nice. This looks really nice. I gotta say, I'm thoroughly impressed. I like it. And thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for sharing with us a little bit of Boston, or at least a Brighton in Boston. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next ones go to LSA Sergeant Figment, who puts in a 2 and says, LSA, hit the like button, and that's an order.
And LSA, do hit that like button. We've gotten almost up to 2,100 likes, which is really a high number. And that is an order. Every single night, we have a general order for hitting the like button. It's not even something we have to say. Everyone who's a part of the Lee Spring Army has to hit the like button. And thank you so much, LSA Sergeant Figment, for giving a call to arms. And thank you for being one of those folks who does hit the like button. Absolute legend of the channel. And thank you once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Philip Fix's LSA, who puts in a 2 and says, when are we getting more gun reviews and Slava LSA?
And Slava the Lee Spring Army, and hopefully soon. We don't know when we're going to try and start that up again, because really we're going to start working hard on making the daily war summaries like we have been, and also even making special length documentaries that are very high quality. Because we're trying to find ways to make sure that this channel will continue to steam forward as strongly as it has in the past, and also even in better ways. And so hopefully we will have some soon, but I can't really give a definitive answer on that at the moment because we don't really know where we're going to fit that in. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you once again for support, Philip Fixes LSA, and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and we are now officially done with our Super Chat questions for the night. So once again, thank you all for supporting the channel. And we're now moving on to our live chat questions that we've gathered throughout the entire show. And the first one is going to go to AF Kaplan, who says, regarding the grain dispute with Poland, any word of Russian agents stirring the pot on Polish soil?
We have not heard of any stirring of the pot like that. It just seems like there are some pretty high tensions in between the two groups, particularly because... Now, I gotta say this, Zelensky is saying that the Ukrainian farmers are taking a loss at selling their grain to Poland. That's not necessarily true. They're kind of breaking even, but the Polish are ending up getting, in better terms, getting the short end of the stick, because the grain that's coming into Poland from Ukraine is so cheap, it undercuts all of the Polish farmers, and the Polish farmers are ending up in financial ruin because of it, and that's why the situation is getting so tense. Of course, the Ukrainians tried to sue over that a little bit earlier, and then they dropped the suit. But I've got to be honest, I can't really fault the Polish for getting heated, especially a lot of the Polish farmers getting heated about this agricultural issue, because you all have to remember, there are Polish people whose entire lives are at stake when cheap Ukrainian grain comes into Poland, because they can't compete. Ukrainian grain is made at such a volume that no Polish farmer could ever try and make their grain as cheap as Ukrainian grain, meaning that no one will buy Polish grain, they'll only buy Ukrainian grain, and those Polish farmers are left without a job and without any income to support their own families with. And so when you put it like that, it doesn't really take a lot for tensions to get high very quickly, in all honesty. And I can very much easily sympathize with the Poles who are looking at their entire livelihoods being at stake. Ukraine has other people who can buy their grain, and it looks like they're going to be trying to work that out right now with the Danube transport route heading into Central Europe. But for the Poles, it is a matter of actual continuance in life to make sure that people continue to buy their grain. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one is going to go to Melinda Grifford Vaughn, who says, is it true that the Pentagon is just now figuring out the long-term plan of sending ammunition for the equipment we already sent and promised Ukraine?
Yes, that is something that honestly is a little bit shocking, is that they're trying to now figure out how much ammo the Ukrainians are really going to need, and it's an exorbitant amount. I mean, like, people don't get it. Like, a lot of people in the public don't get it, is what I'm saying. A lot of y'all get it. But to support Ukraine with enough ammo to keep the artillery we've even sent right now running, it is a lot. It is millions of rounds a year. It's not a million. It's not 1.5 million. It's at least 3 to 4 million rounds per year to match the Russians. And that is an extremely high amount. Now the Department of Defense is trying to figure out how in the world do we even produce that number, or how in the world do we even just supply a portion of that and then hope that the Europeans are able to maybe fill in the rest. So it's a bit of an issue. But yeah, they're starting to try and figure that out now, which is a little late. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to None of Your Beeswax, who says, if the Russians keep losing Su-34s, are they going to be using aircraft from boneyards like they had to pull out the T-55s?
Probably not, because unlike tanks, which you can pull out and kind of refurbish, pulling out retired aircraft that have not been maintained well is a pretty bad idea. There are usually millions of different components inside of an aircraft that all have to be in perfectly good shape and constantly checked and maintained and focused on for these aircraft to ever be airworthy. A good example of that is the F-117 Nighthawk, which is a stealth bomber, one of the first stealth bombers in use with the U.S. Air Force, that has ended up being brought back into service here recently, but for a while it was retired. While these things were retired, the U.S. Air Force still managed to maintain and make sure that these things were still somewhat functional during their retirement or during their mothballing until they were pulled out here recently again. And going off of that, I would have to be entirely honest, the Russians are not putting in that kind of effort in any aircraft that has been mothballed or is just sitting around on a tarmac. They have never maintained them since they were put there, and they're probably in completely unflyable condition. The best thing you could probably do with those aircraft is use them for spare parts, but even then, that might be a little bit too lenient on the Russians. They may be completely disposed of in unusable airframes. But with that, I hope that does address that well, at least with the knowledge I have. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is going to be Lawrence Todd, who says, could the appearance of T-55s on the southern side of the front mean the more modern tanks have been shifted north and east?
Probably so, but I have a feeling that the amount of modern Russian tanks inside of Russia, well, inside of Ukraine for that matter, is probably very limited, because even now, the best tanks we see in most areas are T-72Bs, which are pretty low down on the T-72 quality scale. It's more towards like the very late 70s, early 80s kind of Soviet-era main battle tanks. I have a feeling that the amount of modern tanks that the Russians have at this point are fairly rare, and only a handful of units actually have them. Of course, the VDV unit down in the area of Krynky has some T-90s. We also know of some T-90s apparently being present during the Battle of Avdiivka, but not a high number, and those are the only areas where we've seen a heavy presence of modern main battle tanks. Beyond that, at this point, it looks like everything else is down to T-72s, T-62s, and T-55s across most of the front line. So I would say it's more so like a sporadic dotting of modern tanks and mostly old and archaic tanks. And so with that, I hope that does address that question well. And that was the final question of the night. I got to thank every single one of y'all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolutely incredible stream tonight. If y'all did enjoy and you're new to the channel, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It makes us very happy on our end to see people enjoying the channel and wanting to hear more, and y'all will always be hearing more. We run this stream 6 days a week, almost without fail. Yeah, last week we had a little bit of a rough time, but mostly without fail. 6 days a week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time every single night. Y'all can always count on us to be here covering the past 24 hours of the war and video and picture evidence, showing y'all exactly what's going on out there in Ukraine, and also running Sunday fundraisers as well. Because not only do we cover the news of the war in Ukraine, we help to change, in a small way, how the war in Ukraine unfolds by supporting humanitarian nonprofits that are operating inside of Ukraine. And so with that, I will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Least Spring Army. The Least Spring Army will never die.
And good night, folks. Thank you all for another great stream. And of course, we'll see you tomorrow night. Slava Ukraine, Hiram Slava. Good night.
Yes.